Welcome back, you motherfuckers. It's so good to see y'all. Season 7 fucking started. Y'all ready for this? All right, so I'm happy to be here. Thank you all for joining us. I've got the amazing CharlieInWesteros, my lovely mama LaDonna, Maester Payne, the universal Niko, and the infamous Tony Teflon. Why don't y'all say hi? Charlie?
Hello, folks. Whoop, can't hear me, can you? Hello, folks. CharlieInWesteros here, as always. If you want to check out my own reviews, which I do on my own channel, you can check it out at my channel, CharlieInWesteros. I think I said channel about 10 times just there. Also, if you don't mind, James, I have a quick shout out to do for my Instagram account. Thanks, bud. I'm doing a quick giveaway for the season 7, for the inauguration of season 7, if you will. So if you want to check out my Instagram account, CharlieInWesteros, as well, you could win a free toque and a mystery mini figurine. So just check that out. That's all. Looking forward to discussing this episode as well.
Perfect, and I'll put a link to your Instagram account in the description. Mama LaDonna?
Hello, people. As I put in the chat, I just want to know how many of you said woohoo at the end of that very first scene. Yoo-hoo! We're back, and it looks great.
And MP joining us after a short hiatus. How you doing, MP?
I'm doing good. Glad to be back. Hey, everybody. I wish I had something witty to say here, but I don't. So, next.
You couldn't join the conversation last time. Do you have any comments on what happened? Maybe we'll hit some stuff as we go along.
Well, last conversation, you guys just did predictions and everything, right?
Exactly.
I did agree with you about the that there's still time for Lady Stoneheart to show up. I think it was possible, but since then I've seen an article, so I don't know if we're ever going to get that, but I still have hope.
Yeah, I'm still holding out hope too. It's a hopeless hope, but I've got it. Niko, how you doing? What's new in the universe?
Well, what's new, dude? I don't know, but I don't have cold water supply today, so I'm really pissed. And it's really hot outside. So hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be back. And I have to admit, last week I was not prepared at all, and I was not hyped. But when I started watching the first episode with the Arya scene, I just, I went back in, or it was LaDonna would say, down the rabbit hole again. It was glorious. And I want to give a special shout out to Robert from Melbourne. Hi, Robert.
Good stuff. How hot is it there right now?
I don't know. It's probably around 30 degrees Celsius or something. Wow, you have to do that.
I mean, yeah, the transition. 30 Celsius to Fahrenheit. All right. And if the incredible, the infamous, the magnificent, the Don, Tony Teflon.
Hey, yo, what the deal, my people? You know it is, Don Tony Teflon. I'm back at you, chilling with my people on the small council. I'm loose, just like the goddamn juice. We are ready here to get this thing in and talk about this fucking episode. So let's do it.
Good stuff. I was just reading some comments. It looks like some people are having some audio issues. Some people say I don't see or hear anything. I'm going to make sure while I do, before we do this, it's got to be recording some audio. So I got an initial question for y'all. In Sam's book that he reads at the Citadel, there is clearly a picture of the knife that was used to almost kill Bran. I don't know if y'all saw that, but I'm going to put it up right now. Do y'all think that this is significant, or that it was a throwback to what happened previously? Do you think we're actually going to get some kind of backstory to this knife? Is it relevant to the storyline, or is it just a throwback? We'll start with Charlie on that one. Charlie?
Throwback to a knife. I don't quite know what you're talking about, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want me to give my...
The knife that was used to kill Bran, that later Littlefinger said he lost in a bet with Tyrion. You remember that knife?
Right, yeah.
that picture in Sam's reading a book at the Citadel, and on the next page he sees the Dragonstone has dragon glass. But this picture is, I don't know for sure, but it seems clear to me that this picture is without a doubt the knife that was used by the assassin to kill Bran that Littlefinger mentions. And maybe I'm wrong. Anybody got an opinion on that?
I do.
We'll say it looks like it. I honestly didn't think about it. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, Tony.
Well, it is definitely the cat's paw dagger. And when we see the cat's paw dagger, we have seen it with Arya Stark or Maisie Williams in everything that she has posed in before the season started. If you look at every picture, she's wearing that dagger. It's on display. So I have to say, and you could check my video, White Walker Assassin. As I said before, anyone with a Valyrian steel sword will fight a White Walker. That's the only reason why they got him. So I believe that Arya Stark will kill a White Walker with that assassin dagger.
That's a great idea. Tony, Mama, looked like you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, Tony's absolutely right. And if you want a specific picture to show what that knife is on Arya, go to the Entertainment magazine and look at the picture of Arya in her costume that she has this season. And it's clearly the cat's paw that's in her, I think it's in her belt, but at any rate, she has it on her. And I love that idea, Tony. Love it.
It definitely is a good point that it's a Valyrian steel dagger, so that might mean some White Walker death. Leading from Arya, so my mom and I were talking earlier, in the scene where Arya is with the Lannister soldiers, and we're going to get to everything ultimately, but I've got particular questions I want to ask y'all. Clearly, that scene seems to be presenting her as having some humanity. She sees that not all soldiers are bad, that some of them are just, that's their lot in life. I'm of the opinion, however, that that's all an act, that she is seeing that in them, but she has a goal and they don't mean anything to her. I'm of the opinion that in the next episode, we might, and I'm being specific, I'm not trying to be, but she's going to disappear and we're going to presume that she abandoned the idea of killing them. But we're going to find out a couple of episodes later that she just took over one of their faces. Any thoughts on that?
I was thinking that next episode we might actually see them all dead. And we realize that she still has sort of a dark path inside of her. I don't know. It seems like she's, you know, found some ethics through them, but I feel like her scoping out the scene, looking at their swords, where they were and everything like that, there's still a chance that they might end up dead, and we see that Arya is still on a darker path. Although I'm hoping that we don't.
It's definitely left up in the air. I'm glad somebody kind of agrees with me. My mom's dead set against me. Niko, it looked like you wanted to say something.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I'm not sure. You know, it's hard to be specific, but I don't think that she will kill them. I don't think that she will end up in King's Landing at all, anyway. I think that she needs, when she meets Nymeria or something, I think this scene was set up as a mean to, you know, for her to remember more of herself. I mean, she obviously never forgot who she is. She never lost her identity, which why we have the opening scene, you know, like, you know, if she did not have identity anymore, if she was driven by revenge, I mean, she is, but in this way, then she would just kill them without giving the speech. The speech was, you know, part of her. So I don't think that she will, you know, dress herself as some of the guys and, you know, go to King's Landing to kill Cersei. I don't think that's her arc. So, I mean, in the end, Cersei is more, you know, the opposite of Sansa, or the opposite, arguably, but not Arya. It's not her arch enemy or something. So I don't see it going that way. So that's my opinion. And James, I wanted to ask you, are we going to do this season like we always did, give grades, like rank the episode. I think
Yeah,
we
that's a
should
good
do that.
idea. What did Tony call them? Obsidian candles? How many obsidian candles are we
Yeah,
getting?
Obsidian King. Yeah, oh my God. Oh,
That's it.
memories.
Tony,
I
how
would
many
give
obsidian
10 out of
candles you
10.
give this episode?
Oh, this episode, as I said before, it's usually hard, especially first episode. It's hard for me to judge them because they have a lot to do. They have to catch people up. So I don't give it the normal rating I would give an overall episode, you know. So I'm gonna say 8 for this episode. And I will say quick about the Arya situation. I think that, especially when we brought up Nymeria, right now we see Arya, she's still in the role as the lone wolf. And I think that when she meets Nymeria and the pack of wolves Nymeria is with, and if they bring in Nymeria and not that pack, that's bullshit. They need to bring that whole pack in. I think when she meets Nymeria and the pack, it's going to remind her of what's really important. Her family's important. I think that's what's going to turn her back away from King's Landing and back up towards Winterfell.
That's a great point, and we definitely saw in the preview for the next episode that we were getting a wolf, and that's got to be Nymeria. It's either Nymeria or Ghost, and it's clearly not Ghost. So I'm of the opinion that Arya is going to take a face, but as far as whether she's going to King's Landing, I'm not 100% sure. It's my mom's opinion, if I'm not mistaken, and Mom, maybe you can talk on that, that it looks like Arya's headed to the Inn on the Crossroads.
Yeah, I would also give this an 8, and for the same reason that Tony said. And I'm virtually in the same camp as Niko in what she said, and you know that, James, because we talked about it. Yeah, there's a picture that looks like she's on a horse in front of the Inn at the Crossroads. I agree with Niko and Tony. I think too that the whole point of that was to show that she does have humanity left. And I would remind everybody that she gave that speech at the Frey House saying he violated guest right. These young men at the fire also gave her guest right. They gave her food, they welcomed her in, and I don't think she'll kill them. That is part of the, it's just part of a golden rule. It is a code. And also remember, she's not a Superman. It's not like she's got the Hound there to take out 8 men. She poisoned people in a big group, but she's still a little girl. And even though she's got some skills, she can't take out a bunch of people at one time. Even the Hound told her, next time you try something like that, tell me first. She has to be very discreet about what she does. But I also believe that wolf is not Ghost, and it's not Nymeria. It is one of the wolves in Nymeria's pack, and I think that wolf almost attacks her, and that's when Nymeria steps in. And that will put her back, as Niko said. She's going to Winterfell, or she's going to try. But she'll meet some people along the way. And as George Martin said, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Well, based on what, all right, I want to go ahead and get the ratings and let people respond to that. Charlie?
Yeah, before I give the rating, I just want to clarify, we're talking only about Arya's arc right now, or like the episode title, just Arya's arc?
Just Arya's arc, and we haven't really talked about the Frey situation. I don't think there's a whole lot to say about that except how badass it is. But yeah, we're talking about Arya right now. So what she did in the episode, where she may be headed, the possibility of her meeting up with Nymeria or her family, and whether she's going south or north.
Right. Well, I'll talk about the episode as a whole. I mean the rating. That's correct as well,
Yeah.
right? We're doing that. Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, I gave actually a bit of not a strict rating on my own video, but I think I gave it like a 7, and a few people got upset with that. The reason why I felt it was more of a 7 or 7.5 by Game of Thrones standards is because it felt almost like a setup episode. It was a lot of recapping things that happened before. We had the reference to, season 1, like Ned Stark with, the man who passes the sentence has to swing the blade. There was an echoing to the phrase, the Red Wedding, obviously by Arya committing her own act of vengeance and kind of starting off potentially a legend of her own, of the Stark's vengeance, kind of felt that way, the way she set it up. Of course, in Dragonstone with the pulling down of Stannis' banner, echoing back to his time at Dragonstone as well. So yeah, and all in all, it felt like a preparation for this epic season coming up. It wasn't so much a season where there was a lot going on or a lot of new info per se, at least not to us, the audience. It was more so just, a reminder of where all the characters had come so far in the show and what was going on, in case we hadn't remembered since it's been so long since the show was on air. In terms of Arya's scenes, however, I think So I kind of disagree with Niko on this one, actually. I touched upon it on my own, in a few of my own videos, really. I do think it's in her cards to kill Cersei in the show, just because they've kind of hyped it up with her having her kill list. I mean, she's always repeating, the Cersei in the mountain, and really only Cersei's the one truly living person left on her kill list at this point in time. The mountain, I guess we could argue at that point, but truly living in the sense that has never died is Cersei Lannister, of course. They've also kind of downplayed Jaime's role in his whole redemption arc so far. Not to say that Jaime couldn't be the one to kill off Cersei, but as far as I can tell right now, it really seems to be Arya who will fulfill that role. I do have to say, however, I don't think it's going to happen this season. I think it's kind of going to be her role to play next season, after she journeys to Winterfell potentially, or meets up with her siblings. So again, I don't think it's an immediate plan in the future. I think it's more of a end game for Arya's character. Tony mentioned that Nymeria would have a wolf pack. I think that would be really awesome if they have that. I am a little skeptical just because I feel like the producers might cheap out a bit on that side of things and cut down the wolf pack, just have Nymeria, CGI and all that stuff. More of like a technical choice rather than a truly creative reasoning behind it, unfortunately. But I would love to see the, wolf pack with Nymeria. I think it would be really cool, especially if they use them to fight off the White Walkers potentially and the Whites. People mentioned this in the comments already, but if Arya goes to the Inns, I wonder if she would meet up with Hot Pie again. Like I said, people mentioned in the comments, and I think that'd be really cool and an interesting way to reintroduce that character to Arya in her life. Yeah, I think I'll just end my thoughts with respect to Arya's scenes at that. So that's it.
It was great, Charlie. A lot of good thoughts. One of the problems I had with Arya meeting her family and revealing who she is that she gives up her anonymity and her no one knowing that she's alive at all. She becomes a piece in the game that everybody knows is there. So I'm not 100% sure she's going to be okay doing that, or if she will at all. That said, she has Needle, and it's going to be impossible for Jon to not immediately know who she is. Mom, do you want to talk on that? Also, my mom, Gendry, is a huge deal. He's coming back this season. I cannot figure out where he would go. Joining the Brotherhood Without Banners is what he's done in the books, but he's been betrayed by them in the show. Hot Pie's at the end on the crossroads. It seems makes a lot of sense that maybe he'd go to the end of the crossroads. Mom?
Well, with respect to, I agree with you, James, that she still needs to maintain her anonymity. I'm not saying she's going directly to Winterfell. I think she's got a lot of adventures ahead of her, but she's not going to King's Landing. We know what's not right now. We know what's going on at King's Landing. We're going to have a wedding between Euron and the Queen. And of course, she's not the beautiful queen. I don't want to get into that, but she's not. Arya's not going to go down there because there's so much stuff going down there right now that the author has to resolve. The showrunners do. With respect to Hot Pie, definitely. Whoever said that, I love that idea because you can't give up on the gravy. And in the books, Gendry is at an armorer's place right next to the inn. So doesn't it make sense that that's where he would be hiding? I mean, I don't really think he went back to King's Landing. I think that he ended up going back and maybe hanging out with Hot Pie. So that's what I say about that.
Some more great points. So to add to the Nymeria thing, we've got to get Nymeria in the show. I say that. We've had so much cut out. But Nymeria is the only female direwolf we know of. And there's only one male left, too, Ghosts. It just makes too much sense in my mind for them to both survive the end of this. I say that, but we're down to 2. So also in the trailer for the season, we saw Arya looking underneath a bed of some sort. I don't know where that is. My mom was postulating Winterfell, I believe, at some point. But that would, and Tony mentioned that the knife is in Arya's pocket. I didn't see that. My mom mentioned that to me. So she's got to get it from somewhere. Maybe that's connected to it. Maester Payne, you got some thoughts on all this?
Actually, I really don't. I did not know that there was a preview for the next episode so far. In regards to Arya, though, in general, I do have a crackpot theory, which stems from, of course, back in the books when she chases the cats and gets lost in the basement of the Red Keep. it's a clear arc to her adventures in Essos and everything like that. Like she goes blind and well, there's a bunch of stuff, but at one point, and then when she comes out of that too, she says that her name's Arya Stark and she wants to go home. She's trying to get back to Ned, but at the time, it's basically a foreshadowing of her arc throughout the show. But at one point in that, she hides inside of a dragon skull. And I'm wondering if maybe when she goes north, she might, crackpot theory is she'll kill Dany. Dany's the queen that she kills. For some reason. I don't know what that would be. Or at some time, anyways. I don't think she's going to kill Cersei. And by the way, LaDonna, great point about the guest rights that Arya took. That's a very good point.
Niko?
As for Gendry, I don't think, well, the Inn at the Crossroads is a really big thing in the books. Well, in the show too, but now we have to consider two things. That we have only 6 episodes left, right? I don't think they have enough time to have this location included. I don't know. I mean, they wasted a lot of, not wasted, it was time well spent, but the chunk of time for the Hound scene. So I don't think that we're gonna get more Riverlands stuff. And the second, I think that Gendry is in King's Landing, because where would he go? This is the only place that he knows. So maybe, I mean, Jon is heading south probably because of the Dragonglass. He will have to go negotiate with Dany. I mean, I'm not saying that because, you know, like because of deduction, but also because we saw it in the trailer or something, right? They were talking. Dany and Jon were talking to like in the Dragonstone. So that's my opinion on the thing. I mean, I would like to see Arya's adventures, but I don't think we're gonna get much of that in the show, because, you know, this is it. This is the end, finally. So, thank you.
Good points. Great points. I do think we're going to get Arya, but I agree. There's a whole lot more going to happen, and there's only 6 episodes left. TeeBaby, what do you think about all this?
Is her video frozen, or am I just, it's mine?
She was messing with the mute, but T, if you're talking right now, we can't hear you.
Me now?
Yeah, there you go.
First of all, I hate this fucking mute button, but whatever. I want to say, hey, I'm so glad to be back again. Small council time. I didn't really think too much on Gendry, but with Arya, I was saying for the longest, I think that she's going to die this season. But after watching this episode and then watching that video Tony did about the song, and I'm sure he'll let you guys know about it, or you could just watch it, to be honest with you. But it's interesting that she was the one to hear the then did get the vibe of the guest rights and everything. But then I also remembered that they didn't tell her names. She doesn't have the names. I feel like they're okay. But the second you have names, I feel like then they're SOL. I agree with you guys that I don't think she's going to end up. I think someone's going to remind her to go back to North. Either she's going to hear something about her brother and probably being back, and that's what's going to send her there. It could be Jon. It could be Sansa. It could be all the Starks are coming back home. Then she realized, okay, I need to go home. But I really do think that not Sansa, Arya, and I have to give credit to Tony, because I didn't think about this until he did the whole song thing. But Arya had her kill list. That kill list in season 5 when they wouldn't let her in the black and white names on there. Like, she does her little training or whatever. She never shows that she's actually no one. Every time she had an opportunity to show she's no one, she shows that she's a Stark. So it makes no sense that after all of that training that they would send her to kill someone because she hasn't shown that she's worthy of this. They sent her to kill someone, a fake Cersei, and I think that they were trying to play with her to get the name off, because when she was killing Sir Marion Trent, she was like, they owe me, referring to Joffrey, because she also said that, you know, that was on her list. She didn't remove Joffrey because someone else got to kill him first. And I really think that that's her sole mission, is to get Cersei and to get the Mountain. When you think about it, she's also kind of doing the same thing that what's his name, Oberyn Martell, and all of a sudden she's getting good at it. And when she was at the she was learning how to train with the spear. Same thing how the Mountain died through spear, poison spear. I'm not saying she'll possibly do it. I said that that's what she's leading up to. And I thought that was like the big thing that I got out of that whole Arya thing, is that she's more like, and I know y'all gonna hate this, she's kind of more like Sansa on this, because they're all about revenge. It doesn't really necessarily matter what, and if it, you can go after that, but they are like, I hate to break it down to y'all, but path where it's like, you did our house wrong, so that's it, it's revenge. And you clearly see it with Arya. She killed the Freys and was like, that's it. And she was like, we need to remove them from the house. However, Compass or whoever's going to bring them all back together will be Jon. But if Arya was to go to Winterfell right now, I think she would be more on Sansa's side with these houses that done wrong than she would with Jon. Jon, I'm glad to be back.
So damn glad to have you back. I gotta say that between Sansa and Jon right now, Sansa definitely has more of a. She's closer to Arya in that she said Cersei murders people, and then basically says she learned a lot from Cersei. And we'll get to them in a bit, but before we get to Tony closing out this, you made a great point I didn't think about. Arya is basically leaving a trail for the faceless men to follow her. I don't think she's doing it intentionally, but they're going to know somebody did what she's done to the Freys. And as far as where Arya may be heading, I think most of the people that are on her list are at King's Landing. Tony, you want to close out this Arya stuff?
Yeah, so, you know, Arya, when she rolled up on those people and did her thing on them, I think that, you know, I don't think that actor is going to be in 2 episodes, so I don't think she's going to kill them just for that reason alone. I wish she would have killed them. I like her killing people. I know people don't say it. They like it. I like it. I think it's great. I love everyone that she kills, and I hope she kills a lot. As for the Mountain situation, that's quite a possibility that she would have beef with the Mountain, but I do think that the Mountain's death has already been prophesized for it. So I think he's already going to be taken out the way it's said in the prophecy. I think he goes down that way, and I think that is what the Hound and Jaime Lannister double team him. I think that's the only way he can go. But when you look at the Mountain, and you know, and you look at what's going on here, I don't know if we talk about it. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about this, the George R.R. Martin statement. Are we allowed to talk about that, or are we getting to that later? We can talk about that. All right. So we have a statement from George R.R. Martin saying that Beric Dondarrion was the precursor to it all, and basically saying that Beric Dondarrion's dead and he's a fire white. He's just like the no difference between him and the whites for the Night's King. So therefore, that makes me have to believe that Jon Snow is the exact same way. He's dead. He's just a white. 2. So we have another undead person right there walking around. So in all honesty, so we have basically almost 3 undead people walking around in this series. And I think that when it's all said and done, that there's no way from him saying that Jon Snow is possible to sit the throne. And I think he said that to get ahead of himself, because something might happen this season. He did the same thing with the Mercy chapter, and he got ahead of the show when that was going to come out. And I think he's doing the same thing here with the Jon Snow situation. But overall, the Arya situation, I've said before that I think she's going back to Winterfell. So that's the way I feel about that.
It would be a definite, it would be really interesting for her to meet up with Bran, because that wouldn't necessarily destroy her anonymity everywhere else if Bran's the only one at Winterfell. As far as Martin's quote goes, we haven't really talked about it on this show yet, and you did a great video on it. So what Martin says is basically that the resurrection of Beric and ultimately Lady Stoneheart is comparable to the Whites' resurrection. It's just a different god or a different source of the power, fire versus ice. That said, this is me talking. Clearly, the Whites have no memory of who they were. They're soulless, basically. They just have the will of their Lich King master, whereas the people that are resurrected have some remnant of what they were. And let me add to that somebody like John, and we don't know this yet, but I've said it before in our videos, in my opinion, this is going to be confirmed. John he didn't do it intentionally, but John's mind was in Ghost while he was dead. So while Beric Dondarrion and Lady Stoneheart lost some of who they were while they were dead, as if it was in the ether, deteriorating until a spell brought it back, to me, John's was preserved wholly, so that when his body was returned, the soul returned, the will, the mind returned as well. Yeah, so to me, it is different. But also to add to that, Martin has said there's not going to be any gods. Why don't we move from this into the fire stuff we got? So we've got the Hound, Beric Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr, and they're headed, we don't actually, it's not clear where they're headed. Thoros doesn't actually say. I heard somebody online say that Thoros implied they were headed to Eastwatch by the Sea, but Eastwatch by the Bay? Eastwatch by the Sea, whatever. So I don't think that was clear. It was more that that's their motivation, the reason that they're continuing to go on, that they've got visions. But I did see somebody say on Reddit something that makes a lot of fucking sense. Isn't it ironic that the Hound would immediately see a vision, since he spent his entire life trying to avoid fire, and add to it that he was baptized in fire? Just like the White Walker baby was baptized in ice, the Hound was baptized in fire and is fearful of it, but he sees a vision almost immediately. And I can add to that he says he sees a mountain with a head like an arrow. Who the fuck knows? But Clegane Bowl is definitely something that has to happen. The mountain is his brother, and he says the word mountain, and his brother has a new helmet that has you could say anything looks like a fucking arrowhead, but arguably looks like an arrowhead. I was so impressed with how much we got out of the Hound's character from this one series of scenes. He went back to the same place and saw the people that he had stolen from dead. He doesn't know if the money that he stole from them would have fixed the situation, but he knows that he had a part in treating these people badly before they ultimately died. He doesn't care about the gods, and Thoros of Myr sits there being a roller worshiper and listens to the Hound try to do the 7. The Hound didn't do the 7 because he believes in the 7, as far as I know. He did the 7 because that's what they worshipped. He tried to remember what they said, and he couldn't have finished it anyway because he doesn't know how it ends. He said the stranger, he cut them off, and so the stranger doesn't kill us in our sleep. In Dungeons and Dragons, by the way, it's been my experience that you roll to dig up land at disadvantage if it's icy. So he went through a lot of fucking effort to dig that hole. But watching Thoros watch the Hound, Thoros learned a lot about the Hound. I absolutely loved Beric saying, the Hound saying, it's my luck I end up with a bunch of fire worshippers. Beric says, it seems almost like there's divine right. And the Hound says, there's no divine right, you dumb cunt. If there were, you'd be dead. And we all laugh. And then he says, and that girl would still be alive. And the laughter dies. And it means so fucking much that he thinks that, because that's how he feels about all little girls. It's how he felt about Arya. It's how he felt about Sansa. He just hasn't had an opportunity to fulfill that. He had a little sister once and he lost her. We don't know how, but we kind of presume the mountain has something to do with it. So are they headed to Eastwatch by the Bay, Eastwatch by the Sea? Thoughts on that? We'll start with you, Charlie.
Before I get into my thoughts on the Hound and the Brotherhood of the Banners, is it cool if I just make quick comments on the points you all made previously? Okay, cool. I'll keep it really fast. I will say, though, before I get into that stuff, I think the Hound scenes were probably some of the most poignant ones in this episode. Either Maybe behind the opening Arya scene, which was really epic, I might add. But otherwise, this was probably like the real meat of the episode came from the Hound scenes, I felt. Anyway, just to go back on what some things were said earlier, Niko made a point about Gendry going to King's Landing. I just wanted to add on that I think she has a point there. I think the darkest point of a lighthouse is at its base. Assuming Cersei is still looking for Gendry, it might actually be the safest place after all, especially considering winter is coming and it's not that warm out there in the wilderness of Westeros. Anyway, just want to say that. Also, James, you talked about Arya not revealing herself as you know, Arya. I think strategically that makes sense, but in the context of the show, I kind of agree with what TeeBaby said. You know, she's truly being like, she truly wants to be a Stark. I think that's what matters most to her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have cited the Stark's vengeance when she had that whole mass execution of the Freys. You know, she wants to find her family, and that's what she's going to do. Everything she's kind of done so far was because of wrongdoings to her family. So at the end of the day, I don't think she's really thinking strategically. She's just kind of thinking of being reunited with them. And I'm sure that's going to happen at some point. You mentioned some thoughts on the Faceless Men and, you know, them wanting payback. I think that's a really good point, especially in the context of the books. If the whole Arya plot in the show goes the same way as the books, I just think that in the context of the show, they kind of ended it abruptly and not in the best way last season because they just want to move the plot along and have it focused on Westeros and the whole conflict with the White Walkers. So I don't think they're going to bring the Faceless Men back into it, even though those are good questions to ask, you know, based off of Arya's actions right now. I have to agree on that. Okay, so the Hound scenes. When I talk about the Hound, I don't have a lot to say, but what I do have to say, I have to cite one of my own commentators on one of my videos, Emma. She brought up some great points. I'll have to go and love that comment and make sure it's visible so you guys can check it out. But basically, it revolves around you know, the Hound having visions and having an important role to play in the series, it seems, based off of the scene we had this past episode. It kind of, it's interesting because his visions probably solidify the fact that, unlike, you know, in a way, there's a weird contrast with Stannis here, in the sense that, you know, he kind of took it for granted that he was the Azor Ahai figure. And I'm not saying that the Hound is. I think that was the argument that Emma was making, but it does make for an interesting argument that he could be that figure if we kind of look at the fact that he's almost this reluctant character, not willing to save the world, in quotation marks, and yet he's kind of forced into that role. We had, you know, Mel, who had this weird symbiosis with Stannis. She had this undying loyalty towards him, and she truly believed him to be this holy figure, as did he. On the other hand, we have Thoros of Myr kind of acting as that similar sidekick to the Hound, and Thoros is this drunk, you know, character who didn't really think much about the Red Priest. He kind of just did whatever, and that was that. And then he found the Lord, if you will, in a very weird way by reviving Beric Dondarrion. And in this, and when you put the Hound alongside of Thoros, it's kind of like there wasn't any connection there. There was no loyalty on each side, but they kind of have grown, it seems, to really respect each other in their own unique ways, and create this relationship and this, I don't know, this brotherhood really between them. And then, of course, we have, you know, the fact that the Hound asks these interesting questions, you know, why are we left alive? What's our roles? He's questioning why him? It's like he doesn't understand why seems to potentially have this important role of I guess saving the world from the White Walkers that he's seen in the flames this past episode. So it kind of does build up the Hound to be this this reluctant hero archetype. Again, whether or not he's the Azor Ahai figure, if they even bring that up in the show, it's a whole other question, because I still think Jon Snow kind of fits that role a bit better. But it does, you know, make him up to be an important character in the you know, in the fight against the great others, against the others in general. So I think that was more of a, you know, question than anything else, like what you guys think about the Hound's role in that context. And yeah, and just to kind of create a little parallel there with Stannis and Melisandre from a couple of seasons back. So that's all my thoughts on that.
Those are great points, Charlie. To add to what you were saying, something that I forgot to mention, that you mentioned Azor Ahai, and I've said for a while that it's my opinion that these don't really mean anything specific. They're like the hero's journey, the epic cycle. Like it's generally applicable to the same ends. I don't think we already had Martin say in a previous convention that there aren't going to be any gods. To me, the point of the miracles and the point of the prophecy is for us to consider, atheists and for religious people to consider the even if miracles were real, even if you could see something happen that you knew there was no scientific explanation for, that doesn't tell you why it happened. That doesn't tell you if there's a reason behind it. It doesn't tell you the motives behind it. They name him Rolor. How the fuck do they know his name's Rolor? He just made that shit up? And that's just a metaphor for generally how that works. Also, I'm stealing this from my mom, but we finally got the Hound as the Gravedigger. Mama, your turn.
You stole my Gravedigger. Oh, that scene just made me want to cry. I mean, we've been waiting for something like that with the Hound. We've seen in the books him as the Gravedigger doing similar things, but we don't get his perspective because in the books, he never gets a perspective. So all we are doing is kind of trying to figure out what he's thinking. And, you know, when we saw those grave digging scenes, we got an idea. He's on Quiet Isle with a bunch of monks. Again, that was the Brother Ray thing. That clearly he's there for contemplation. But I'll tell you, and I said this in the chat earlier, of all the theories I've come up with, I would never have ever guessed that the Hound would see something in flames. I mean, never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that Martin was going to take him that way. And I love it. I think it's brilliant. And I think it just fits his fire cycle so well. And, you know, Kiss by Fire was one of the episodes we've had before. We should have known it meant something else, not just being a redhead. I just think it's brilliant. And I thought Rory McCann did a very good restrained acting job on it. I thought it was brilliant. James, you made some really wonderful points about his love for little girls and his sister who ostensibly was killed by his brother. No one knows, but and his love transferred over to the Stark girls in a different kind of way. You know, I think he's got or will have some romantic things with Sansa, but Arya's like his best freaking friend, his traveling companion. But I thought it was brilliant. And I will say that, James, you were right about the burial in ice, because I can remember when I was a little girl, my parents lost a friend and they lived up north, and they said they wouldn't have a burial until like 5 months from now. And I was like, why? And they said the ground is frozen. So that's not unusual. But yeah, I don't have too much to say. I thought the writing was brilliant in it. I thought the pathos for the child and her father. I mean, can you imagine having a baby in your lap, a little girl, and killing them so that they won't starve to death? And this is what old Nan told Bran. And James, I'll let you quote that a little bit because I never get it quite right. But it's exactly what Nan told Bran when he had just come out of his coma. How about you saying it right now, James?
Oh, my sweet summer child, what do you know of fear? Fear is for the winter when the snows fall 100 feet deep. Fear is for the long night when the sun hides for years and children are born and live and die all in darkness. That is the time for fear, my little lords, when the White Walkers roam the woods. Thousands of years ago, there came a night that lasted a generation. Kings froze to death in their castles, same as the shepherds in their huts, and women smothered their babies rather than see them starve, and wept and felt the tears freeze on their cheeks. In that darkness, the White Walkers came for the first time. They swept through cities and kingdoms, riding their dead horses and hunting with their packs of pale spiders, big as hounds. All right, we'll go with Maester Payne.
First off, I have to admonish LaDonna. We had a conversation on this show at least 2 years ago where I said, what if, when the Hound got burned, he saw something in the flames and that's why he's afraid of them? And she said, oh, MP, that's brilliant.
I fucking remember that. Holy shit, MP, you really did say that. We need to go find that clip. God damn, well done.
And you also stole my Gravedigger thing, and I don't have anything as poetic as what everybody else has said, but I had the Gravedigger and I had that, and that's about it. So continue on. Sorry.
I'm glad you pointed that out, MP. I totally forgot about that. Good fucking call.
Thanks.
Niko?
Okay, I have quite a lot to say. First of all, we forgot to mention it, but I'm taking dibs because when I was watching the show, I stopped at the beginning and immediately went to our chat on Facebook and said it was a really nice hint to book readers or to people who theorize about the show, the books and the show, when Arya was offered food and the guy said, "My mom always told me to be kind to strangers." And this was perfection because if you remember, I mean, all the people who've been watching Council for years, you know that our thing is we talked about it several times, how Stark family without John is a reflection, or there's an analogy between them and the fate of the Seven, and Arya was a stranger, so it was really nice thing that they included in the show. As for the Hound scene, it was one of my favorite, definitely. I mean, if you look at the whole episode, of course, I know that I should not be happy for, you know, Arya killing people, but damn, that scene was epic. And I, you know, you felt a little bit of this universal justice. As did they say that universal justice? How did the Hound and Beric talked about it? Did they say universal justice or something?
Divine justice.
Divine. Yeah, you had that. Oh, fucking yes. And the best line in the show ever for me was when the Hound said, "You're not fooling anyone with that top knot, bald cunt." I mean, come on. That was the essence of his character. He's, you know, not using any expensive words. He's just, you know, there's no bullshit with him. He says the way it is. I mean, it was so good. And I, you know, it's funny, but it's actually it summarizes, you know, who he is. So, and it was really good acting, you know, all these guys that were, you know, Beric and Tauros and the Hound. It was really good scene. I really enjoyed it. So we got ourselves some Quiet Isle condensed into this scene, into these scenes. With it was, you know, like they included all the chapters in this way. And I think, you know, when I was watching it, I was just thinking about how LaDonna was enjoying the scenes. I'm sure she did. Do I have something else? No, I think that's it. I think I will not speak anymore, and I will let Teflon speak. Please, Tony, let us know what you think.
And Niko, those are great points. You're 100% right. The acting in that scene is fucking fantastic. TeeBaby? TeeBaby. T's on a delay, by the way, everybody. That's the reason why she's got that.
Yeah, because it's like this mute button just does not want me to speak. It's kind of petty. As far as the Hound, I loved it. I loved how he was calling everyone out of their names. I wish I could have something real deep to say about it, but the only thing I got off of this scene was that I think Tormund's gonna die. Like, the scene said basically Eastwatch, and then later on he's like, "Oh, I guess we're gonna have to go there." It's just like, I was scared as shit last season that he was gonna die. I think they're gonna do it, and that's the only thing I could really focus on, was that gonna die. I mean, the Hound scene when he was looking into the fire, my dumb ass was looking hard too, thinking like, oh, we might see like a little image in the fire or something. But I like the fact that they showed it. I like that the fire broke when it got through. And then I'm thinking, how did they get through the wall? It's like, is that Bran's fault that he can now do it? Like, is there some spell going on? Like, I'm curious if they're going to show us like exactly how they get through. We already know from the battle at Castle Black that, you know, they can get through that wall if or at least through that tunnel, because they almost did it with the giants that they had. And then Man said, you know, you barely survived that attack, you weren't going to survive the next. So the fact that they were like, oh, they see him, and then you see when he says ice, like, you shouldn't even be seeing ice, but for some reason he saw his antennas went up, and the next thing you know, they were paying attention. Like, this was a new vision. They didn't see this vision. vision that the Hound saw. So I love that part. But of course, the only thing I could think of is that basically Tormund's dead, warning him now. I'm just curious, like, what episode is he going to die of? That's it, y'all.
Unfortunately, I got a fucking point. Certainly don't care about it. Tony?
All right. First, I must say this, and I hope Tormund dies, just because TeeBaby be hating on Stannis all the time. So I hope he dies a horrible death. Now, but before we get into that, let's get into the scene. Let's talk about it, people. Over 200 people in the chat. And I'm going to say this before, and no disrespect to channels that are out now, newer channels that they do good editing, do a lot of things. But a lot of these theories that you hear have been said by the small council a long time ago. And that's just basic facts. And it's no disrespect to anyone. We're not saying people are stealing. It's just people come along, save wavelengths, but we've been here for years. Me and James been in this for a long time. You know how long me and James been here? James know it. When we were just wearing t-shirts in the video and we didn't think no one was going to watch it. We weren't even caring about shaving or nothing like that. Right? We were just up in this piece. We've been doing this since back then. So let me explain to you about this Hound situation. All these gods. There's only one God, and there's no gods. It's the goddamn Green Seers. That's who's doing all the goddamn children of the forest. The Green Seer were law, and I do believe James said this a long time ago. So let me say it just like that. When you look at Arya and she goes and she visits the many-faced God, when she gets to the House of Black and White, you see the worm in the eye. The same thing that Bran sees in the weirwood tree when he gets there, that's Blood Raven. It's the same person. They're all the same situation. So all this fire magic, all this is all blood magic. It's all children of the forest. And I guarantee in the end, that's what you're going to find out in the end. There's no bunch of stuff. It's just this one dude's doing all this. Now the Hound situation, looking into the flames, was really shocking to me. I didn't think they were going to go this route with, and I don't know if this is how it goes in the books. I don't know if the Hound joins up with the Brotherhood. I don't know if he goes beyond the wall. I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but I do like it, and I like the fact that it does it, and the fact that we also see the Hound later in the clip in the Dragon Pit in King's Landing could foreshadow that we could possibly get some type of Clegane Bowl going down right then, because obviously then we see the other clip of the Hound with Jon Snow beyond the wall, so he must survive it somehow and come back, and maybe he's the only one, or maybe the Hound plays the role of the dog for Jon Snow as the last hero, and it's him and the Hound is left until the Hound goes out. He could be Jon Snow's dog. And when I look at Beric Dondarrion and everything else, I have in my head, in all honesty, I don't think it's Beric. I think it's someone walking him. And I think that's with possibility what's going on with Jon Snow. I know that's what's going on with Patchface. I told y'all that before Patchface is being walked. I told you that. So if you want to call him Water White, you can call him a Water White all you want. And I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen. They didn't just have Bran warg Hodor or learn how to warg Hodor just so that's the only person he does. That's not the way it's going to go down. Jon Snow's going to die a couple more times, and it's going to eventually be Bran inside of Jon Snow controlling his avatar of a body and doing everything. And that's how Bran's going to become a knight. That's how Bran's going to have sex. That's how Bran's going to do it all when it's all said and done, especially in the books. Now, the show, they go that route. They may not go that detailed with it in the show. Trust the Don, quote the Don. We pull the strings. When it's all said and done, that's what's going to happen. So I did enjoy. I'm not a big Hound fan, not like LaDonna and everything else. I like the Hound. He's a good character. I thought the guy said when you talk about Rory McCants as an actor, he just delivers those lines. And if you want to hear someone who knows how to deliver the lines, listen to him and then go listen to that singer who had one line, right? And that's not, I'm not making fun of him, but he's just not an actor. But the guy that Rory McCann, he just delivers those lines. It's just, it's like he was made to play this role. And I look forward to seeing everything else that goes down with him. I won't take up anybody else's time. We'll move on to whatever we're moving on to.
You're not taking up anybody's time, Tony. When you're talking, it is your time. God damn, those such great points. I want to cut the talk for split. Yeah, I see you, Nick. I'll get to you in a second. I want to cut the talk for a split second to reference what Tony said. I was saying before we started this video, I've never met in person any of the people on this video, but all of them are some of my best friends. These are good fucking people, and we're just hanging out. That's all we're doing. We're hanging out, talking about something we all care about. I love you, Tony. You're a fantastic fucking dude, and it's an honor to consider you my friend. So great fucking point about the dog and the hound. I forgot about the fact that the last hero had a dog with him. It was his dog and his horse, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Great point about Patchface. I saw your video about that. Patchface is basically a water resurrected. Great points. And to what you said, T, it's really important that we not see the vision. To me, it's really important that we not see the vision in the fire, because we need to only see it through the perspective of the person who saw it. If we saw it, we'd make our own opinions about what it is. That's why we get to see what Bran sees, because Bran is literally seeing the truth. We actually have him seeing the future at some point, which I don't know what to do with that, because he saw the explosion at King's Landing before it actually happened. But for now, it's important that we not see that. And also to what you said, TeeBaby, it seems like the Hounds, they're writing the Hound's character to focus on the word cunt. That's the word he uses more than any other curse word. And I got to wonder if there's a point to that, a reason that they're picking that word over everything else, that he may use it later. I know that sounds like insanity, but they often do things that seem innocuous so that later it's poignant. I mentioned previously, y'all made me think about this, that it looked like the sword the Hound had, and what maybe Clegane Bowl looked like Dawn, though I have no reason to think that'd be true, except that it looked like it. In hindsight, a lot of the swords had similar hilts this episode, so I got to take that back. The curve of the hilt, a lot of them looked like that. All right, Niko, what do you want to say?
I wanted to ask you guys. I was thinking about what the Hound said to Beric. He said, "I've seen better men than you beheaded." So that's Ned. Hanged, which is the brother. What's his name? The elder brother from the Quiet Isle.
I think that's literally what he's called, elder brother.
Yeah, and the third one, he said, who shot themselves in the field, like fighting. Who's referring to? I was thinking, because there are two people, exactly who he's thinking and who's the third guy. It's like when he said who shot themselves, I was like, he's not talking about Tywin, right?
I'm gonna. If
well, that's the reason why we have a mute button, Mama. I'll get to you. Raise your hand. Let Niko finish.
I'm just gonna finish quickly. What was Tony talking about? That there's this one dude who's like affecting everything, and I'm thinking like usual suspects thing, like Kaiser Soze. Who's Kaiser Soze? Like Hot Pies Kaiser Soze or something. I don't know. It's just stupid. Really. It made me funny. It made me laugh. I thought it was funny. So, LaDonna, who's the third guy who shot themselves in the field of?
Yeah, go for it, Mom.
Nobody did, but that was the point, Niko, is that he's been among soldiers many, many times. It was a reference, I think, to what Davos said to Tormund before they were going into the war at the Battle of the Bastards. He said, "I'm going to walk all night and get as far away from the camp as I can and shit myself." I think it was just a general thing about soldiers and the fear that they have going into battle. So it kind of went from very personal to very general. That's all I had to say.
I think you got a point, Mom. I think you used the word probably, and some of them probably shit their brains out in the woods, something like that. All right, so and again, the format, if anybody has anything to respond to what we're doing, we answer it on the next round so we can get through a lot of this stuff. I've got one thing I just wanted to put out there so we know we've discussed it. It's confirmed we have white giants, and it made me also think about the possibility of ice spiders. We literally had somebody 2 seasons ago say that the ice spiders, and after all we've seen, you don't believe that? So I think we're getting ice spiders, depending on season 7's budget. So since that's a minor thing, I'll also bring up Bran heading below the wall. I think that all of us probably have a little issue that they're not addressing whether Bran thinks that he may have allowed the Night's King through. I don't think, and we talked a little bit about this last time, I don't think that's even a possibility, partly because, and my mom mentioned this to me, Benjen specifically says that there's a magic to the wall, which is similar to the magic that's is similar to the magic that's at the Greenseer throne. And it's like, I say this vaguely, I'm not well versed in it, but it's like hacking a computer. Once you find an access point, then you're allowed in. So the Night's King has hacked, and I'm using this really loosely, I mean it as a metaphor. He's gained access to the computer that is the Greenseer throne. He has not gained access to the computer that is the below the wall, although he certainly will, and I think that'll happen by the end of the season. So we can also throw in Dany on this. So right now we're talking about Dany, the glimpse we had above the wall of Bran and of the Night's King. As far as Dany goes, I thought that gate she was at, though beautiful, was not as impressive as I'd like it to have been because it was only about 12 feet tall. That said, I'm not knocking it. It looked fantastic. Also, the dragons that they had looked a lot like Aztecian or Incan dragons. Somebody had posted a picture of them. Not quite the same art, but there are literal dragons on Aztecian, or I believe it's got to be Aztecian. I don't know, Aztecian, Incan, or Mayan. That look similar. But I did want to add, lastly, before we go around, that when Dany says, "Shall we begin?" Though that is clearly just a badass line to end the show on, we've only got 12 episodes left. I think that the writers put that in there because they fucking mean it. Shall we begin? This is it. 12 fucking episodes left. And like Bronn said to Jaime, he's singing the Dornishman's wife, and Jaime says, "Stop singing." And he says, "I was near the end." And Jaime says, "I don't care." And Bronn says, "But this song really is all about the ending." Charlie?
All right. I don't have much to add in terms of your thoughts on the events north of the wall / Bran scene. I think they kind of spoke for themselves at the moment. In terms of Dany's scene, which was also short, of course, this does kind of tie in a little bit to Sam's stuff, although we did discuss it a little bit at the beginning with the dagger that was in the book that he was reading. But it mostly refers to the episode title, which was Dragonstone, which, of course, is a reference to the island on which Dany finally lands, her ancestral homeland, or the Targaryens' ancestral homeland. It's also obviously a reference to the weapons that will be used to kill the White Walkers, in the sense that it's obsidian, Dragonstone, the stone of the dragons, I guess. In my head, I kind of think of it that way because it's forged. It's used and forged by dragon folk, the Valyrians, and of course, the Targaryens are Valyrians. So it kind of stands to reason that the island of Dragonstone would have a stockpile of stones for the dragon people, I guess, or a stockpile of those kind of weapons on that island. I hinted at it in my own videos on the Valyrians and White Walkers a while ago, but it does make me wonder if the Targaryens didn't have some awareness of the White Walkers and intentionally kept the weapons in case of an onslaught or in case of that threat coming back. Could also have to do with their abilities to see the future, like Daenerys the Dreamer and all that. Although they don't really address that in the show per se, so I'm going to keep it limited to that. But Sam also kind of touched on it as well when he, discussed the fact that the Valyrians are obsessed or had an interest with that kind of weapon when he was doing his research on obsidian and Dragonstone and Valyrian blades. Because of course Valyrian blades seem to be made of Dragonstone or of obsidian. So just want to tie in the episode title with I guess the things discussed in the show as in general, this specific episode. What was I going to say? Shall we begin? So that was the last line delivered by Dany this episode. To me, I agree with you, James. It's only 12 episodes left. To me, I kind of read that as this is war. Like from now on, it's only going to be constant battle after battle after battle from here on out. This episode was really slow paced in a sense. It was more dialogue heavy. I think this is an indication that with only 6 episodes left this season and next season, it's going to be constant fighting between the different factions, and especially next season against the White Walkers. And I think that is all I have to say on that for now.
Mamma Jamma?
I want to, if I might, go back to what Tony just said a little while ago about the green seer. You know, we've talked about this, Tony, you and James and I, for a long, long time. And, you know, I'm going to say this again. James Johnson was the first person I ever either heard or read on any forum that said the Night's King was real. I want to say that. I'm going to give him kudos for that. I think Tony's absolutely right. I think the green seer is the god. And who is the opening chapter of the books? It is Bran. He is the Alpha, and he will be the last chapter, the Omega. He is the god-like figure who is, he may be omnipotent by the end, but he certainly is omniscient. He knows everything, or will. And James, you made a good point that the only person that Arya may very well be able to reveal who she really is to Bran, who probably already knows it because he's seen her taking her faces off. So there's not really a great reveal there. Tony, so that was a great point, Tony. You brought that all together so well. Thank you so much. And again, I count your friendship as a wonderful thing in my life too. With respect to what you said, though, about the dog and the hound, you know, Robert Baratheon said it best in episode 2, I think, of season 1, when Sansa's dog Lady was being taken away to be executed in the lieu of Nymeria. He said to Ned, "A direwolf is no pet. Get her a dog. She'll be better off for it." That is the hound. And the romantic burning, simmering thing has been there for years. Clare Gray, you asked if I talked about it. There it is. People don't see it because we don't get a perspective from the hound, and Sansa's a little girl in the beginning. It's there. And when Peter Baelish says to Sansa, you say you're safe, but you're not happy. What will make you happy? Well, we know what would make her happy. She said, "I only had one friend at King's Landing." Now she looks at Peter Baelish. He wasn't her friend. It was the hound. So be looking for that. With respect to there being no gods, Martin has said that absolutely, James. There are no gods. It's the green seer, period. And that's Bran. And I've said it before, Tony. You said it in your recent video. I've said it before as well. The prosthetics of the Night King look exactly like an aged Bran. Now, I'm not sure I agree with you with respect to Bloodraven, but I do agree with you and have said so in my own right before. It's Bran. Now, I don't know how this is happening, but it is Bran. Going to when Bran is going into the wall and Dolorous Ed is there, I'm not sure he made the right decision letting him in. Now, we would have all let him in. But, you know, like the vampire movies say, they can't come in unless you invite them in. They did a great European movie called Let the Right One In. They did a remake later. It's from a wonderful book. You can't come in unless you're invited. Well, he let him in, and I'm not sure he did the right thing because we know Bran is marked. Now, if it's not a tracking device, if it's just plain letting the green seer in, period, he just let the Night King in, essentially. With respect to Dany at Dragonstone, real quickly, I got the real vibe of Jurassic Park when those doors opened. It was like, here we are. And, you know, the dragons are like dinosaurs. I loved it. The thing I really want to talk about on that scene is that, remember, as Dany did in the vision of the Undying, she goes up to that throne at King's Landing and she touches it almost, but doesn't quite, and turns away. She never sits it in that vision. She didn't sit the throne either in this one. Now, I think she will, but I think it was important she didn't take it because she's got bigger fish to fry. It's not about sitting the throne with her. She is a conqueror, which, again, and Charlie, forgive me, I'm not sure she's ever going to really be satisfied sitting a throne. She's a conqueror worm, and we'll see what happens with that. That's all I have to say about that part. Thank you very much.
Lovely, Mama. Thank you for that. Maester Payne?
I got quite a bit here. First of all, just to you, James, going back, whites do remember, or it's thought that they do. When John's attacked, first of all, in the books, he says that the guys that are attacking him remember. Like he looks into his eyes and he says that they remember who they are. Back with Mormont and everybody like that. Gotcha. I have to argue with Tony a little bit here. On John at least being the last hero, I disagree with that. It's going to be Sam. Sam's the last hero. He's training. He's doing everything. He's losing weight. His arrows are making the mark, and that's sort of his thing. He's the last. He's the guy that's afraid, and the only time he can be brave is when he's afraid, and that's when he stands up to do everything. As for the White Walkers, I feel like they need to come through. They're a truth that the world needs to see, and the whole opinion of them existing is the fact that they're a unifying force. What they're doing is shepherding everybody into their realm and making people join each other to combat them. That's why they were created. They were created when the children were under attack, and it's sort of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The children created them for that purpose, to join people together, and that's exactly what they're going to be doing. So they're kind of like a truth that when Tyrion walks to the end of the world and pisses off it, he doesn't believe about anything beyond that, the Snarks, the Grumpkins, the Ice Spiders, anything like that. His world ends there, but there's a block, and there's shit there that he doesn't believe in and nobody believes in anymore that has to be seen by the world so that they know that it exists. So that's why they have to come through the wall. As for Brandon's a god, I would say he's more like a tool of the god, and I think they both are, and they're interchangeable. You have Brandon and you have Brynden Rivers. So the names are very similar, but one's ice, one's fire, right? So you have each sort of cycling over each other, trying to right the world in their own way, but it's never going to work out. It can't work out. There's always going to be the duality of each side. And I feel like Dany, as well as Sansa is, Dany is the epitome of Cersei. She's using her kids to gain power. They're gonna die, or at least one of them's gonna die, and she might not be like Cersei and keep going, but she's going to either have a realization or she's doomed, and all those dragons are gonna die in her fight for her conquest, and I think she's on the wrong path. I love Dany. I think she's doing the right things, but she's not living up to her ideal. She's living up to Viserys's ideal, right? It was never her dream to conquer Westeros. It was Viserys's dream. And I think that's everything I got to say there. Sorry.
No, that's a great fucking point. It was not her dream. She was almost handed it the same way that she would have been handed the throne had she been in Westeros. She's just kind of told that's what she's supposed to do. TeeBaby?
Of course, I was halfway paying attention to you guys and halfway paying attention to the chats. What topic are we on? I know we were talking about the Hound, but now we started talking about Dany, and who else?
We're talking about the scene with the Night's King and the reveal of the whited giants. We're talking about Bran coming through the wall, and we're talking about Dany, the short scenes we got with Dany.
Okay, so it's alive. I'm gonna keep mine short, simple, and to the point. As far as Dany, I'm glad that they ended it that way and that we didn't really get too much, because then I feel like this whole episode would have been filled with way too much stuff and they would have just been passing. So I'm glad that they stopped it right there so that y'all want to know what she's going to do, but next episode. So I love the fact they did that. I like the whole scene with the Night's King because we kind of got the when they were at Hardhome and we saw that the storm came down, we couldn't. Once that storm came, and you got to see the other side, you realize they had no chance because the storm came and you just saw like one horse. And then as it's come, you see like maybe another. And by the time you see the third one, you're already in a, and then of course, I got hyped up because I saw 3 giants and I was like, oh, that's not a good look, because when we go back to the Battle of Castle Black, they barely made it. They have less people now in the wall, the Wildlands to Eastwatch, but we all know if the vision does come true, that doesn't even matter. As far as Bran, I don't know if because he has a mark that now they can track each other, or if he gave him access to now go through, or something else was going to happen. Something huge for him to actually fall. It can't just be, oh, they attacked, because if that was the case, they would have been attacked. So something is either the Night King might have something to bring that wall down, or it could just be as simple as because Bran's over the wall, just waiting for him. I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something else. And that was the chat. I love Dragonstone. I like the whole scene, just seeing the dragons on top of there, and just the fact that they're ready to get to work. They're not like saying, oh, let's fancy words. She was just like, let's get to business, because she's been trying all this time. It's like no point of like, let's just get to the point. So I definitely love that. But once again, my favorite scene was that vision of the Night King coming through, because once again, we saw what happened on the other side of Hardhome, and I love that because it was probably one of my favorite episodes. But I'm glad that we got to see how he kind of I don't know, I guess his strategy, because I think that was present time, and he saw that the Night King was approaching something in the future and the past, or at least that's what I thought.
Tony?
It is me. Thank you very much. I'll just say thank you for Nikolina for wearing those Daisy Dukes. I really do appreciate it. If you got to get up and walk away again, you can get up and walk away again all you want. It's all good. All right. So let me. I hate to see you go, but I like to watch it. Anyway, let's get into this real quick when they're talking about the Night King. And I will say straight up again, let me reiterate what LaDonna said. James Johnson is, without a shadow of a doubt, the first person on YouTube or Reddit to say anything that the Night King was the ultimate guy, a bad guy. He got teased for it. He got people to say he know what he's talking about over and over again. You don't say that shit no more, right? You don't say that no more. So give the man his props for what he did. And he's also the guy who predicted a white dragon. So if we do see a white dragon, you can go back years ago. He said that. I said ice dragon. He said white dragon. It looks like he might be right about that one too, and I might be wrong on this one. So when you deal with the Night King and everything else and all that, and as I just did a video on this, there is definitely similarities between this Night King and Bran Stark. There is no way around it, and it's a good possibility that the Night King is actually Bran Stark. Could be. It's a good possibility. It could be, or it's Brendan Rivers. I'm going to go with Brendan Rivers, and then I'm going to say that Jon Snow is going to be Bran's avatar. So we have 2 different avatars. We have Brendan Rivers in the Night King, and then we have Bran inside of Jon Snow. And I think that's how the final battle will go. The 2 green seers fighting each other in their avatars. I think that's probably how it's going to go out. That's just what I think. Hey, I could be wrong on that, but hey, you could doubt me all you want. Dealing with that, when you deal with Dany and her dragons, when you have weapons, and when you look at Dany's weapons as an atomic bomb, it always fucks up, right? It always backfires on you. And when you bring something that you think weapons to a place that you think is going to save this place, that's not what's going to happen. Usually when you do that, what happens is this thing backfire on you. And you've seen these giants walking, and we've seen a giant before shoot an arrow, and what that arrow did when it shot at the wall. Them giants shoot an arrow at that dragon's out of here, right? He's a goner. And if that dragon dies, the Night King around, that's his dragon. And that's probably what you're going to see happen. It's a good possibility it's going to go down. There's no other reason to bring those giants out there and show you unless they're going to shoot an arrow and take down one of them dragons. So I think possibly that's what's going to happen. As for the whole Dragonstone situation with Dany, I don't care about it. So let's not talk about it. Let's move right past let's move right past that. What are the other topics that we're talking about? I know we're doing a couple on the road. What's the other ones?
Bran coming below the wall, the Night's King Storm, and Danny. I think that was all.
All right, so Bran come below the wall. I think that the mark on Bran is a tracking device. I don't think it's the actual thing that's going to allow him to bring down the wall. I think the wall is just going to come down from the sheer force of the Night's King or whatever he does. I don't think that's going to be it. When you look at Bran, if it was that, why wouldn't Benjen stop him? Right? Why wouldn't Benjen right then say, hey, you can't go beyond the wall. You got to stay here because the Night's King's you're gonna destroy everything. You got to sacrifice your life. The fact that Benjen didn't stop him, and I believe this when you dealing with the children of the forest and when you're dealing with all the people that are the White Walkers. The White Walkers were created by the children of the forest as a propaganda tool against mankind. They were losing that battle. So then they created the White Walkers. They hid. When the White Walkers swept through man, that they sought out the children of the forest. The children of the forest didn't come clean and say, we created the White Walkers. They just told them how to defeat them, how to drive them back. Never came clean on it. They came clean on it now. Why would they come clean on it now? There's only one reason. Because the White Walkers are after them. They're not after really mankind. We've seen before in the past, you hear that the White Walkers were having sex with the wildling women. All right? They weren't killing them. They're having sex with them. So the White Walkers were out there. The White Walkers are after the children of the forest and the green seers. They don't have the numbers to protect themselves. So they had no choice but to come clean the man and say, hey, we created these bastards. Now they're out of control. We don't know what to do. We have to hide behind you. That is what's going on with the White Walkers and the children of the forest. And that's the only reason why they came clean. There's be no other reason for them to give up that secret if it was anything else, right? Because the White Walkers already came down and they already killed mankind. They didn't give it up then. So the only reason they're doing it now is because the White Walkers are coming specifically for them. That's who they want. That's why they can track Bran. That's why they're after Bran. So when Bran comes through the wall, the White Walkers are going to follow him through and looking for him and kill anything they have to kill to get their hands on Bran. That's what I think about it, and I think that's what's going on, and I'll leave it to y'all.
Amazing points. I got a couple of responses. As far as Rolor, I mentioned that to me it's not a real thing, but that said, so I guess what I mean to say, we don't need somebody behind it. We never need to be shown anybody behind what Rolor is doing to get the point of what I think Martin's doing with Rolor. That said, something spoke to Varys from Beyond the Flames. That's different. I don't know. I mean, that implies that there's some conscious being. Now, I don't know what to do with that. That could be Bran. I mean, I don't see there being any kind of god other than Bran. And
it could be similar to glass candles, though.
You're right. It could be some kind of communication, not so much a ethereal creature. So we were talking about Bran maybe being omnipotent. It appears as if he already is. He knows that Dolores Ed was at not only the Fist of the First Men, but also at Hardhome. He could not have known that unless he's seen it. So he's seen a fuckload. He's clearly going through the information left and right, and he said it confidently. So, Mom, your comments about Arya are well taken. MP, you mentioned that the Whites remember. If that's true, I totally don't recall that. So good call on that. I'll have to go back and take a look at that stuff. And Tony talking about the atomic weapons, that's exactly right. Having a dragon is basically having an atomic weapon. There's no competition there. There's no way for safety. And the only theoretical prevention is for everybody to have it so that you're all afraid somebody else is going to use it. And there's a great Stanley Kubrick movie about that. And it would be as shocked as they were at how the wildfire exploded at the Battle of Blackwater Bay. Dragons are infinite amounts of that, and over and over and over again. It's no wonder the Targaryens ruled, but if you have a tyrant, there's nothing to prevent them from doing exactly what they want to do. All right, so we'll, again, if anybody's got comments to say on all of that, do so as we progress into the next area. In the next area, I want to talk about Sam. So just so y'all know, the next area, we've got Sam, we've got the phrase, which we haven't really talked about with Arya. And we've got Jon, Sansa, Brienne, Littlefinger, and we've got King's Landing. But for now, let's just talk about Sam. If anybody wants to say anything about the Frey situation, you can go ahead and say that too, because we kind of touched on Arya. I guess we should go ahead and knock it out. All I really have to say is what a great opening scene to have all of us for a split second go, well, that doesn't make any sense, and then realize what the fuck's going on. I loved her. This also goes to show that she can play men, that Arya can face into men as well. And what a great line for her to turn to the girl and say, not you. I don't want to waste good wine on a damn woman, only to have that turned around on her at the end. Loved the line. It was badass hearing Arya say, if anybody asks what happened here, tell them that the North remembers and that winter came for the Freys. Great lines, but the best line by far, and arguably for the whole episode, with the exception of some of the things the Hound said, was Arya saying, leave one wolf alive and the sheep are never safe. And we talked about this already. As much as we kind of saw Arya's humanity because she seems to be empathizing with these soldiers, I think that's the opposite of what Arya is. Leave one wolf alive and the sheep are never safe. The sheep are everybody. As much as we'd like to think we're all the hero of our own journey, we're all the sheep. Unless you're ruling, we're all the sheep. So talking about Sam. Poop soup. I think that's the first thing that has to be mentioned. Poop soup. They did such a great job with that. It seemed like overkill, but I thought that it was important that it be overkill. They needed to make it so much that we think in our heads, all right, we fucking get it, because we need to know that Sam. It's not just he's having to do this. Okay, it's annoying. No, he's really frustrated that he's learning nothing and getting nowhere and not allowed to learn, which is why he went there in the first place. So they definitely got that across, and it was also a segue for him to get the keys to get the book. I just finished recently The Name of the Wind, which is a book by Patrick Rothfuss, I think is his name. And I'm not going to spoil anything.
Yes, James, finally. Yes.
I've only read the first one, but there's a library. A library has a big role to play in a lot of that book, and access to it is an important thing to the main character. But you don't just steal a book like that and not get in trouble. If anybody finds out that a single Night's King's book is missing, a single book, they're all going to know who fucking stole it. So yeah, he's going to get in trouble for that, and I don't know what's going to happen. So the Dragonglass scene, I was fine with it. It passed relatively quickly, but a lot of people were making the comment online that this is apparent. It broke the fourth wall in that he already learned this. They just waited until the opportune time for him to do something about it, and the book was there. Oh yeah, shit, fucking Stannis told me. But I'm not worried about that. I'm just trying to make comments so that we all understand what's going on with the world around this. Also, side comment, we mentioned Ed Sheeran. I had no fucking problem with Ed Sheeran. I thought he did a wonderful job singing that song and thought he came off great. Personal opinion, though. Everybody's got their own. Like an asshole. So Jorah has grayscale eking up his arm, and he has sought help at the Citadel. I don't think they're going to be able to help him. How long has it been where they've been trying to likely treat grayscale? But we'll see what happens with that. But it's established that he is in Westeros, so we don't need some storyline to get him there. All right, so the main thing I wanted to talk about was Sam. The conversation between Sam and what is likely going to be Marwyn. I don't know that, but it's the equivalent of Marwyn. First of all, Broadbent did a great fucking job, and I hope we get a lot more of him. The reason I think that that's such a lovely fucking conversation is that Marwyn's not wrong. Marwyn says that every time there's a huge disaster or change, we made it through. But that's an anthropological fallacy. It's the idea that it's hard for us to look around as primitive humans, primitive species, conscious beings, and doesn't it appear like this world was fucking made for us? The air we breathe, the food we eat, it's all around us. It looks like it was made for us. Almost as if this universe was created solely for us. but it's only in a universe like that that we could exist. So what appears to be creation for the purpose of us is actually that we could not exist in a universe unlike this. So had we actually not survived the long night, Morrowind wouldn't be there to say, well, I guess it's possible we could lose. That's a fallacy. The fact that you've survived every horrible event before does not mean you will survive this one. And although he makes a good point that look on the bright side, Sam. There's no fucking way you can look on the bright side when you've seen what Sam's seen. It's impossible. And to know that it's coming and you're not going to be able to help it. So those are the things I want to say about Sam. I also mentioned something about Arya, the phrase, if y'all want to talk about that. And I touched on Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran, my bad. And Charlie, your thoughts?
Alrighty, where to start? I'll start off by responding to a few things from the last, and I think first, I think it's a little bit essential since we did discuss Daenerys. Danny being a conqueror, LaDonna mentioned that. No need to apologize for that specific thought. I actually agree with you on that. I think that's a point I made a couple of seasons ago during one of our discussions, actually. I kind of discussed how her journey is heavily mirroring that of Aegon the Conqueror, to the point of that her arrival from an only somewhat successful campaign in Essos over to Dragonstone is quite similar to that of her ancestors. And those of you who've read the World of Ice and Fire would, I guess, kind of pick up on that as well. If you also recall in that World of Ice and Fire book, Visenya was most likely the brains of the leadership operation behind Aegon the Conqueror. I think that's also true in this case too, either with you know, if Daenerys is the Aegon figure in this 300-year future, then either Jon Snow or Tyrion would be that other brains behind the operation in this case as well. I didn't catch all of what MP said. I left my room for a bit, but he mentioned that it wasn't her dream to conquer Westeros. But it certainly seems to have become her dream, at least in my mind, especially after her time spent with the Dothraki. We know that her original ideal, in the books at least, was to find her red door, her home. I think I saw a couple comments of that in the chat box earlier about that. And I think in this episode, she certainly found the closest thing that she has to a red door, at least in the TV show. They kind of, I think that was kind of like a little bit of a shout out to that, in that they had her, you know, go on the beach and put her hands in the dirt. It was a little bit of that, you know, her coming home aspect that was emphasized this episode with Daenerys at Dragonstone. Anyway, that's all basically I had to say on that. Now with Sam, James, you already touched on it, you know, don't eat while watching that scene. I was eating Indian food. I was eating specifically buttered chicken. It wasn't a pleasant time. Almost seemed like overkill when I was watching at the time. But your comment on Sam getting nowhere is actually quite accurate. So I guess it makes sense why they emphasized the whole disgusting and dull nature of Sam's tasks at Old Town. Yeah, I said my piece on Dragonstone already last time, so I won't go over his discovery on the map. I will also say, you mentioned something a while ago and I forgot to touch on it, was the words, well, the overuse of the word of swear words, really, like cunt. It was used a bunch of times by a bunch of characters, swear words in general, that is. I don't know if this is relevant to your point, or if you have a theory behind it, but I think Cersei also referred to one of her enemies with the C word. So like I said, it seems a little bit excessive to swear that much this episode, but maybe there's a theory behind it. Maybe there's a point behind all that swearing. I guess we'll see. Actually, the director for this episode is the same one who's doing the last episode this season. So maybe we'll get more swearing in the last episode, and there's a point to it. Back to Sam, though. Yeah, so we also had Jorah Mormont in this scene. I think that was a clear indication, yet again, that Essos is kind of over and done with in the TV show. I don't know about you guys. I think some of you also had this thought that maybe Jorah was going to venture to Asshai, or he was going to look for Quaithe. I think the fact that he's now at Old Town instead is a clear indication that we could probably discount that stuff. At least that's my hunch anyway. Clearly he's at Old Town to find a cure for grayscale. And this kind of had me thinking, could that maybe be part of Sam's key out of Old Town and doing nothing there? You know, maybe he discovers a cure and uses Jorah to meet Daenerys potentially, especially now that he knows that Dragonstone has the obsidian daggers there, or at least has Valyrian swords, or there's a stash of it on the island. So crackpot theory, maybe there's something to that if Sam creates a connection with Jorah. Jorah introduces Sam to Daenerys, maybe helping that potential alliance along with Daenerys and Jon, possibly. I guess we'll see. I don't know. Just a thought. Another part of me was hoping they would introduce, and they still might introduce, like a likable Sand Snake character in Sorella / Alaras in Old Town. I'm not holding my breath on this one, just like I'm not holding my breath on Lady Stoneheart, but we'll see. It would be kind of cool if they at least had a Dornish figure, you know, that's likable in this series by the end. Last but not least, I also love the Maester mentioning the different sources that cite the same event revolving around the White Walkers and the Long Night a while ago, and that being his reason why he believes that Sam is telling the truth. My inner history buff went a little crazy for that. So that was pretty much all for Sam's scene. James, you did mention the Ed Sheeran scene a while ago. I didn't dislike it or like it particularly. It just seemed a little random to me, maybe perhaps a little over the top. I mean, they had a close up of his face when the scene started. Otherwise, I don't really, you know, have any strong overt thoughts on it. It was all right. That was that. And the phrase I said what I had to say about the phrase. There we go. Can't talk right now. Okay, that's everything. I'm done.
All right, perfect. Just want to say, great fucking point about the dragon issue that we're getting that right now. It didn't dawn on me that we're getting that right now. Aegon's invasion and the possible death of the Targaryens all over again. Yeah, that was definitely not a good food to be eating during those scenes. Sorry about that, Charlie. I hope you were able to finish it. Great point about Quaithe being gone. And I totally forgot to mention that this is the first time since the beginning of the show we did not have Essos on the map. Mama?
Oh my goodness, so much good stuff. Good point, James, about Essos not being there. Well, if I can just say this, and I'm going to go to the end of the Sam scene, they could have killed Jorah a long time ago in the show. He's there for a reason. I mean, this isn't the last you're going to see of Jorah. And if I can remind you guys, in the books, he's been tattooed with fire all across his face. Don't forget that. So this man is coming back somehow. I'm curious to see whether he's going to look crackly like the Incredible Hulk or whoever that is. They're going to find a cure for grayscale, and the cure for grayscale is dragonglass. That's what it is. It was in that book. I think if you looked very carefully, it said if you ingest dragonglass, you have a chance of surviving it. It was one little paragraph. Somebody pointed it out. James, if you can find that, that would be lovely. But yeah, I mean, they could have killed him. They haven't killed him. He's coming back for some reason. I loved the fact that instead of seeing Sam have to go through daily rituals like Arya getting the shit kicked out of her every freaking day, we saw time pass over and over and over again, quickly. And I think it was important that it was a mundane task like watering and feeding these old maesters and also the toiletry problems. Sam was a steward. He did this for the people. He wasn't Lord Commander. He was Aemon Targaryen steward. He's done this before, just not in this huge of a continually in so many things. But I also think it shows that human beings are disgusting, and they are. We're really disgusting animals, and I think the Night's King thinks we're really disgusting as well. So it might be a reason he wants to get rid of us. This is the second time we have seen Sam steal something. He stole the sword from his father, and he stole the keys. So he's breaking a certain code, and I love it. He's becoming an anarchist. With respect to the Maester, his name is Ebros, E-B-R-O-S-E. Yeah, he's the stand-in for Marwyn, but he's not as much of an anarchist because Marwyn certainly was in the books. I want to say one thing, if I could briefly go back to the Arya Frey scene. A lot of people complained in the show, if you haven't read the books, because Arya was the same height as Walder Frey, her hands were aged like Walder Frey. An element of the Faceless Man, when they take that face, is that they become the personality of the person. And don't forget, we've got glamoring going on in this show. Melisandre glamours herself to look like a young, vibrant woman when she's a 400-year-old woman. And I used to say 400, but I recently heard, I think David and Dan say she's 400 years old. So take that for what it's worth. So there's some glamoring going on along with the taking of the faces. So there's, and I don't know if you know this, but glamour means magic, and Glamour magazine means the magic of using makeup to change your look. Okay. It really does mean that. I think, hold on a second. I think that's it. And I love the scene. I thought it was beautiful. And I love the interaction between Sam and Gilly, like they're a comfortable married couple. I don't know where he's getting the money to keep her there, but okay. Because he could be living at the Citadel, which is what he does in the books, but somehow maybe he's prostituting her out in Molestown to keep that apartment. I don't know. Bye.
Definitely not. Great points, Mama. And about Mel, you know, there's a pretty common theory now that Mel is Shira Seastar's child, which wouldn't put her quite that old. I think it would make about her 100. Maybe, basically Bloodraven's age, a little bit younger. By the way, where's she at? Anybody got an opinion on that? All right, Maester Payne?
Opinion on where who is? Mel? She'll be showing up at Dragonstone, or else she's already there, according to the trailers, and I'll thank Sue Haley for that. So just to touch on a few things with other people, Dany realized her dreams of Westeros after the birth of her dragons. That's when she decided that she has something that can gain her that thing, and she was kind of corrupted by that. Speaking to you, James, I'm not saying it's old whites like skeleton whites. It's the young whites. It's the fresh whites. It was the whites that went out with Benjen on the Raging, and then they came back dead, and they woke up, and the comment was they remember when he looked at them. I'm fairly certain, but I've been wrong before when I've argued with you. So.
And I don't mean to say that I disagree. I just don't recall it. And it makes sense if there was a memory that it would be soon after they died, like the parts of their brain are still. Yeah,
it's sort of the same thing as Beric, right? He's losing bits of himself. So maybe the older you get, the more you lose. But yeah, they were fresh. I think with Tony in regards to the children and why they made it, I disagreed with the fact that it's a secret. I think the First Men know it. I'll throw out the quote for both things. The North remembers. The North remembers what happened beforehand, and the North remembers this. I think the actual First Men came from the North, southward, whereas the history tells us everybody came the other way, but that's not actually the case, especially if you look at geological formations where the trees were cut north to south, or south to north, but northern on down, there's nothing there. And all the older buildings, the strange architecture is in the north. So it seems like they came that way first. And that's why the wildlings are trapped behind the wall, because they had no way to get there. They didn't come from the south and go up there and say, oh, I want to go back. They came from the north. And I think it was the First Men and the children that made the pact. And the pact was to create the White Walkers as a unifying force against the new invaders, which were the Andals and the Rhoynar and blah, 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 that were cutting all the trees from the south. That's what I'm saying. I'm thinking that the North is part with the children, and that's why they have a connection to them. And I don't think that the secret of the White Walkers is hidden from them. It's been forgotten through the ages, perhaps, but even Benjen and Ned, when they say winter is coming, it's the only time that you hear it until Jon and Sansa, when there's laughter about it. They laugh that winter is actually coming. This is kind of the thing that they've always been knowing about, so it's not a secret to them. As for Jorah, I know we haven't really gotten into Sansa and Jon at the Winterfell, but Jorah's the definition of loyalty without reward. Whereas Sansa says, so there's no reward for loyalty, there's no reward for this. Jorah is the definition of loyalty without reward. He's not hoping for anything. He's been turned down every time, and that's what loyalty should be. You shouldn't be loyal for a reward. The only reason I said that is because somebody had mentioned it earlier. As for Ed Sheeran, I thought it was what it was. I was like, oh, there's the scene that Ed Sheeran's in, and then I was like, okay, let's watch. It wasn't anything bad to me, and yeah, the singing was great. Poop Soup was probably the best whole thing in the whole show. It was tons of inside jokes. Leave it to me to find jokes and shit, or meaning within the shit. But first of all, it's books, and then it's shit, and then it's books, and then it's shit. So it's a tongue-in-cheek sort of satire of what the TV viewers that don't read the books are doing. It's like, the books are shit, I'm just going to watch the TV show. There it is. And we get that later on with, oh, the restricted area, the place I can't go to, but you can, as Sam proved. As soon as I want to grab a key, I can go get a book anytime I feel like it and learn what everybody else like us is talking about. The other thing was digestion of knowledge. You have to filter it out. It's all the maesters, the smart people in the group. This is why we have the shit there. We see the books, we see the shit. They're digesting everything and shitting out the fallacies and everything like that. And Sam has to deal with the shit to get to the actual knowledge. And that's just part of life, right? You have to deal with shit to get to where you're going. I thought it was one of the most brilliant scenes, besides being one of the most disgusting scenes. Marwyn has a truth and a fallacy at the same time, where he says that the wall has withstood everything all the time, but that's false. The wall was never there in the very beginning, right? The wall wasn't there during the First War. It came up afterwards, so he's wrong about that. But it's also a truth in that we will always survive everything that happens, and that's where I leave everything. Oh, by the way, the last thing for Tony, for the last hero bit, after all that with Sam and Marwyn, or whatever the guy is, he says the very last words is, clean this up now. And that's what Sam's going to do. He's going to clean everything up. That Sam is the last hero. And I also had a cameo in this episode. I am the slab. I'm the maester with the extended liver on the thing being brought out. So cheers for me.
The alcoholic.
Yes, absolutely. And that's everything. Thank you.
Yeah, man, Maester Payne. And great comments. People were commenting in the I guess live chat talking about you. Niko, your turn.
Oh, finally, me. I have so many notes here. This is like when I'm working on something work related. So where do I start? Let me show you my notes. Like, this is crazy. So first of all, James, I'm so glad that you started reading Kingkiller Chronicles, because it's fucking amazing. And it's behind me. Like, I think these here are, like, I have it in Serbian and in English. It's really good. And I hope he finishes and not does what Martin did. And I would like to talk to you about these books. So anyway, you mentioned this celebrity guy that was in the show. I don't want to sound like a cunt, but I really didn't know who the guy was, so I did not get the whole thing. I mean, I know who that Mastodon was on the show last season, but I don't care about this guy. I really don't care. People, this is like, we live in the outrage culture now. Everybody's outraged about something every fucking day. Like, just you know, chill. Where do we start? I missed the part when you were talking about Dany and the wall. There's not much to say. I liked the costume on Dany, like the intricate detail on the shoulders. It was really amazing. I had to go back and pause just to see. Whoever did that costume was, you know, kudos. And also the only thing about the Dragonstone scene was I expected Mel behind the door. When the soldiers opened the door, I expected Mel would be standing there. I don't know why. But so that's it. In regards to the wall, I think that Tony and most of you are like, I'm on board with you when you say that when Night's King touched Bran, it was just like a tracking device. So otherwise, why are we setting up for everything to happen at the Eastwatch? I mean, if he can, you know, do whatever, then he would just follow in through the main gate of the wall. But the wall will come down this season. I think this is going to be the end of the season anyway. Although the action is going to happen in the Eastwatch. I don't know why they're choosing. I mean, they're choosing it because it's the easiest way to enter past the wall. Okay, let's see what I talked about this. Then this is unimportant. What I have to mention something in the restricted section of the library. Did anyone notice like the astronomical, like a map of something like moon phases? It's the book that you see through the bars of the gate bars. So I really like that. So it means that they're good on astronomy, and they're keeping those books away. I don't know why, probably because those books are like valuable or something, not because they're like have secret meaning or something. The first thing I thought about the whole shit scenes, I love the montage. It reminded me of like what Genet does in his movies. You know, this director who directed Amelie movie. There's this really cool movie of his, my favorite, is called Delicacies. And he usually includes these montages in the movies with like repetitive stuff. So I would recommend watching him. And the first thing I thought about watching those scenes were academia. That's like punchline. This is academia. There's so much shit there. I mean, that's how I interpret it anyway. So yeah, and when Sam was pushing that cart filled with these, how do you call this, where people shit, these bowls? I thought, oh my God, the glass candles, but you know, like camera zooms in and then I see, well, it's like where you shit.
Deadpan.
Next, sorry?
Deadpan.
Yeah. So, but I really thought like, oh, glass candles. Now, no. No. First, we're gonna talk about Jorah. I think it makes total sense that he's there at the old town, because where the fuck would he go? I mean, if you want to cure something that you don't have cure for, at least you go. I mean, a normal, rational person would go somewhere where they do science, but like experimental science, like clinical trials today or something. You have to try for something. I mean, a lot of people they option for, I don't know, some alternatives shit. But I mean, he's not going to find cure in some, you know, in the middle of Essos, like by the road. He has to go somewhere where it makes sense. And James, you showed us some screenshots. Somebody transcribed what was said in the books. And yes, I think that Dragonglass plays a much more important part, not just to kill White Walkers, but also to cure. And my reasoning for this is because Shireen grew up on Dragonstone, and she survived it. I mean, she was surrounded by Dragonstone. So probably Jorah can be, I don't know, robbed by Dragonglass or something, you know, like when you go to a spa center and they put volcanic stone on you. I don't know, something like that. Why not? I mean, we use volcanic stone for the same, you know, like it has healing properties. And I hope that they clean those dishes really well, what Jorah touched, because, I mean, obviously in every cell where they keep these people, there are some crazy diseases there. I assume it's not like old people with not dragon scale, what's it called? This disease, help me.
Pale mare.
yeah, like yeah, something contagious. So I hope they are doing a good job of cleaning those dishes, because this is how you know, like, you can't transmit the disease. And you know, people in the chat always joke about Jorah touching shit, and not touching shit. Oh my god, that was an intentional pun. But you know, touching stuff. Stop touching stuff. No touching. But I really like the whole idea. And I don't know what, somebody messaged me on Facebook, a few people, like, why is Jorah there? Like, it makes total sense. Where would you go if you had some uncurable disease? You're not going to go to some, you know, snake oil guy. You're going to go to an institute, you know, like, please help me, you know, try to find something, some cure. And I don't think I have anything else to say. Yes, I'm so sorry for, you know, smothering you with information, but this is my notes. So thank you very much for listening.
Great stuff, Niko. I got responses too. I'm gonna let T go though before I interrupt y'all. T.
Niko, we love hearing everything you have to say, so never think that just you guys, because first of all, MP, that was really impressive to even have bedpans and the whole they're spewing shit. And I don't like the fact that they hold this information, feels though you have to be standards before you can even get information. And this is information that can help a lot of people, but for some reason they'll restrict you from it because they don't deem you worthy to know this knowledge. I hate that about the Citadel. Or y'all all know I cannot stand Jorah anymore. He works my nerves. It's time I want Jorah to get like a Jamie hand treatment and just chop it off, because it drives me crazy every time I see him touch something. Nonchalant about it. He keeps touching everything, and I'm thinking like Grayscale, like this stuff spreads. When he saw the Stoneman, he was so freaked out saying don't touch anything, and now he's touching. He's like going out of his way. So I don't know if they're like showing it just to but I just feel like they must be showing us him touching stuff over and over and over. I think that there is going to be some type of spread of Grayscale. There's no way that out of all the stuff he's touched, there's nothing being spread. And then of course my mind starts wandering, and I hate it but love it at the same time. So now I'm like, well, if you turn into a Stoneman, can you be warged? Because we started talking about these fire whites and whites, but Stoneman essentially, don't they kind of lose their mind? So I'm curious, is that going to be something that they're going to also bring into the story, where it's like you have these whites that are fire whites, and then you have these other whites, but then it's like, what do Stoneman play a part in? And I guess I'm just curious if they can just be George. I'm thinking that everyone's basically going to turn into Stoneman. As far as and I know this is all fake, but that little kid kind of freaks me out a little bit. I don't know, it's his eyes. His eyes look just like the Night's King. And I don't know if there's like another story to be had, or if they're going to continue with what's going on with him. But for some reason, I still think that kid plays a big role. They might be downplaying it now, but he looks so much like the Night's King. And I'm talking about before he was turned in, that it kind of freaks me out. As far as Sam, I think Sam's interesting because he's also kind of going against his vows. Like Sam clearly fathering children, and he's basically wed to Gilly. So I thought that was interesting. And then also, I feel like he's probably going to get caught because he's stealing a lot of stuff and nothing's happening to him. I feel like he's probably going to get caught with these books or something. He's going to have to flee. I don't know I know that they're healing Jorah, and Santa said that with Shireen that, you know, he did go to maesters and healers, and he said some other term I can't remember, but he said that they did everything they could before they cured it. So yeah, there is a possibility that Jorah will be cured, but I want to know how far him touching all this stuff is going to affect things, because right now, an error on the show, because even sometimes he'll switch hands, but it's still, he's touched enough people to the point where it's like, okay, it's on this hand and it's nasty. Why are you touching stuff on the nasty hand? Why can't you touch stuff on the clean hand? It just drives me insane to the point where I'm like, okay, if they keep showing us him touching stuff, it has to spread. The next season they have to deal with that, or this season. But as far as that, him dying, to be honest with you, I already talked about Sam and how he's basically breaking his oath with the Nice Watch, because he's definitely fathering that kid and he's definitely married, basically. Say about the shit soup. I mean, shit soup is shit soup. And I forgot what else we were talking about, but I'm pretty sure everyone had, like, you know, reviews for that. So I'm going to just leave it.
Fuck yeah. Oh, he always gets such amazing comments. I never know what to expect. You'll always have new ideas. It's insane. Tony?
Okay, so let's do this real quick. All right. First off, let's deal with the Melisandre situation. Now, Melisandre is definitely glamming. She's definitely 400-something years old. But even at 400 years old, there's got to be something more than a glamour keeping you alive, because it doesn't matter. We see people's bones and the whites and everything else. There's something else going on with Melisandre besides the glamour. The glamour may give her the appearance of a younger person, but to live 400 years, that's not a glamour. There's something else going on inside of her to keep her alive all that time with Melisandre. When it deals with the children of the forest and these people in the line, winter is coming, saying that this is some type of call for the children. Winter is coming is not that. Winter is coming means death. Obviously, we've seen Arya just use the line against the phrase that winter came for the phrase, right? So death came for the phrase. So that means that the people of the North look at winter is coming as death. They don't say, hey, winter is coming. Our friends the White Walkers are coming over for tea. They say winter is coming because that means a long night is coming. They're coming to kill us. They're coming to kill the animals. Because when it came down to the children and them, I don't think they seen them any different. They were just human beings. And I think that's the whole reason that when you deal with the White Walkers as if it was this world. In this world, we deal with different religions. We're all humans. So we fight over other things besides being human. It would actually take like religion mostly, but it would take an outside threat, some type of alien creature to come here and attack us all for us to reunite under the human banner. So when I look at the children of forest, I look at them like that. And the White Walkers, they were attacking humans, not just the Andals, the first men. They killed them all. Anything that old Nan has said, never at once did she ever say anything that the White Walkers are friends with the first men. She said they came and killed everyone. They went through cities. They went through Holdfast. They killed everybody. So they were just killing humans at that particular time. When you deal with Sam, I mean, and all this shit, I don't like shit. All right, it's nothing I deal with. I don't like taking one. I do it because I have to. I don't like it. I don't like these goddamn Easter bunnies that shit jelly beans. Think it's nasty. Don't want to be around it. Don't like it whatsoever. So I think at this particular time, Sam is like, goddamn, this didn't happen to me at the war. All right, but this has happened to me here. So he may want to go back to the war at that particular case. I told you all, you could check the video. And you can check the date, and you can find me a video, and you won't be able to Reddit post. I told you Sam was going to kill Grayscale. I told you that over years ago. You can go back and take a look at it. That is exactly what's going to happen. He's going to kill Grayscale there. And we also know that Jack and Hagar is casted for this season. So is he coming back to the Citadel to do that mission for Sam? Is Sam going to kill a faceless man? Or is he going out there looking for Arya? Don't know where exactly he's going to go, but it's definitely going to go that way. I know that my man Ray Alves just did a video on that whole situation of people taking a shit and saying that it's quite possible that that was a foreshadowing of Davos dying. Now, we've seen that go down with Dany with the runs and everything else. It's quite possible that someone may die from that disease. It may come to Westeros. That could be a disease that comes over to Westeros, and someone does die from that, from dehydration after going through all that stuff. So good possibility that could go down. I like the scene. I like the Sam part, not the shitting part that was disgusting and everything else. And I actually thought that the guy playing Marwyn looked more like Marwyn than I ever thought he could. Because every time I ever seen that guy in any other role, he looked very nerdy. Didn't think he could pull off a rugged look like that, but he definitely pulled that character off. This kudos to him as an actor and everything else. And that's all I have to really say about that part.
I completely agree about Broadbent. He usually plays like the nerdy, slightly off character. You got he was in Gangs of New York. He was in obviously the Harry Potter movies. He was in Cloud Atlas and a bunch of other stuff. He's always plays the old kook or the weird guy. So if you more about the disease, you know, we got a video about disease to watch. We're probably I don't know how they're going to do it in the show because they're going to have to limit it. But in my opinion, in the books, we're going to have a typhoid Mary situation and a smallpox vaccine situation, which were pivotal in today's understanding of epidemiology and immunization. Going off of that into more science stuff, Niko, you mentioned the map of celestial bodies it appeared to be. I mentioned in a previous video the comment that, in my opinion, and again, I don't know to what extent they're going to do this in the show, but one of the most important things to the industrialization of the world, the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, was Isaac Newton's principles of math, principle of arithmetic. I don't remember what it's called, but the figuring out the comet was part of that, how celestial bodies rotate each other, force equals mass times acceleration. But that's one of the reasons why we ended up with the Industrial Revolution, and that's going to happen. And we've already had a comet, and Isaac Newton predicted that the comet would return by a certain time, and I think he died 2 years before it actually returned, but it did return on the same day he said it would. TeeBaby, you mentioned, and I think that's, if anybody's studying that, it's the Citadel. That said, in the books, Maester Lewin has a telescope that he's looking out of that Bran and Rickon looked through. TeeBaby, you mentioned that kid reminds you of the Night's King. It doesn't remind me of the Night's King, but I think that kid is clearly the same kid. The baby is the same baby that was turned by the Night's King. They look too similar. Those are either brothers or the exact same kid. It's clearly the same. And Niko, you mentioned Melisandre. We know from the trailers that Melisandre is ultimately going to head to Dragonstone, and it looked like that was when Jon was showing up. Somebody was walking up and Mel's there. By the way, I hate seeing spoilers, but I've got to see these videos for the sake of doing these videos. So I don't want to watch the previews, but I have to. I know we all saw Sam open that book that had the skeleton on the front, The History of the Long Night, and every single one of us was like, I want that fucking book. I know we all felt that way. I just want to put that out there. And I didn't think about it, but one of you mentioned the presence of Jorah and Sam in the same location. As soon as Sam finds out that Dany has landed in Dragonstone, he is going to go to Jorah and start talking to him about, that is Charlie, going to start talking to him about that situation. All right, that leaves 2 locations. Well, yeah, 2 locations, because there's really not much to say about the phrase, and we kind of already did that. So I'm going to start with King's Landing. So first we get the painting of that mural on the ground. I mentioned in a previous video that it looked like the ice had drifted down into the north. I'm completely wrong. It was just unfinished painting. I just want to put that out there. Cersei and Jaime are talking. I think they're doing a great job of towing the line between the connection that these two have while maintaining Jaime's desire to do what's right and be calculating, and Cersei's slow loss of reality. Jaime says, we haven't talked about Tommen, and she says something, and she says, we lost our little boy, and she says something like, he betrayed me. What the fuck? Your little kid killed himself. He didn't betray you. And she just can't see how what she did is the reason I mean, you can't always blame yourself, but clearly she's the fucked up reason that he did it in the first place. He can't win, and he's controlled by everybody around him, and he kills himself because he can't be satisfied. So that's such a poignant, that to me, of every other line she's had throughout the entire books and show, clearly indicates she's a narcissist. She cannot view anybody else other than something that feeds herself. I can't fucking believe she said that, but that solidifies it. And Jaime rolls with it. He's like, what? But then he keeps rolling with it. I love the lines about dynasty. She says that we'll build a dynasty to last 1,000 years. He says, for whom? We have no fucking kids left. And she says, then for us. And he looks at her like, are you out of your fucking mind? We're not going to live for 1,000 years, which is a play on the Night's King, which is also a play on what their father wanted. Tywin wanted a dynasty, a legacy to hand down to his children. Does that really matter? Don't you just want your kids to be happy? Make them smart, happy people. So to the best of your ability. Also, that I know that not everybody buys into this, but Gendry is Cersei and Robert's kid. So Cersei still has a kid. Cersei still has a kid. She doesn't know it yet. She doesn't know that kid's still alive, but Cersei has a son. And there's going to be a realization of what he is. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. I talked to my mom about the possibility that he's the Lord that doesn't want to be Lord, because every time, he says to Mel, every time he says to Mel or Davos, every time I meet a Lord, if something goes bad for me. That's going to play into this. And then there's the Euron scene. I think a lot of us were a little disappointed with Euron last season. I can only speak from my own perspective. It just appeared as if a lot of his lines were one-liners and not a whole thought out, let's go murder them. But holy shit, that scene was fucking awesome. And for the dick that he is, you gotta admit, he was a fucking badass. Pirate, punk badass. Testing his boundaries. He steps 2 steps up. Fuck Dario, both those Darios. This dude's cool as fuck. I love the character of Dario, though. So he steps up on the dais, and the mountain walks over, and he's like checking to see what he can do. He steps back, and a little while later, he takes another step up and looks over at the mountain to see if he's actually going to do anything about it. I was joking that if he's a D&D character, clearly his charisma is very high, his persuasion. Ever since I was a little boy, I always wanted to marry the most beautiful woman in the world. What horse shit, but he's doing his best to play her. And I've got 1,000 ships and 2 good hands. What a fucking awesome line. That was incredible. And about killing your brother, you should try it. It's wonderful. And we don't know whether that's a taunt to Jaime or whether that's a taunt about Tyrion, but either way, it's vicious. Anyway, I think he did a fucking awesome job. The ship was incredible that we saw. That ship was magnificent. What's the gift? My mom thinks my first inclination over what the gift was a dragon. My first inclination was Tyrion. Then I thought, there's no way that's going to happen. So I thought dragon. But it either based on what the television trailers and teasers have shown us, it appears clear that it's going to be the Sand Snakes, at least Ilaria. And I don't, like I said, I try to avoid that shit, but to a certain extent, I need to see it so that we talk about this stuff. So I don't have that information. I don't know for sure, but we all need a little bad pussy. So I'm going to go with Charlie, make sure I said everything. I did want to add one thing that ties in now, but I'm going into the next session or next section. They intentionally mirrored Cersei and Sansa in this episode. Clearly, we got the scene where Sansa says, Jon says, you almost sound as if you admire her. And Sansa says, I learned a lot from her, which she did. She did learn a lot from Cersei. You can learn a lot from a bitch, a cruel person, even how not to be. But both Cersei and Sansa had moments in this episode where they mentioned close family members who were dead and said, I loved them, but they're gone. And they've made mistakes, something to that extent. One was Tommen with Cersei, and with Sansa, it was Robb and Ned. So that said, we're sticking with King's Landing. I only mentioned that to get to it, and then all we have left is the Jon Sansa stuff. So let's kill King's Landing. I want to hear everything. Charlie?
All right. I think I also have some responses from earlier. Let me just look up in my notes because I was kind of typing as you were talking there, James. Yeah. So one last point to add to something way earlier. Sam, it also had something to do with what I said in terms of Sam meeting Daenerys. Sam also knew Aemon Targaryen. I think somebody brought up Aemon's role at some point. I think it was you, James. But I mean, he's basically the only other living relative that was alive during Dany's time in Power and Marine and during her time with the Dothraki. So it kind of gives, I guess, an added connection between those two characters when/if they do meet. The other thing that was more of a question, LaDonna, and then I think Tony also mentioned the idea that Mel is 400 years old. Do you guys know what the source was for that? Because I don't think I heard that before. It sounds familiar, but I don't remember the age ever actually being revealed.
It was the actor who played the Maester in the scene that drank the poison with Stannis. He said he couldn't. He didn't understand the characters. He didn't understand his role, and the actress who played Melisandre came over and told him, "You gotta think that I'm 200-something years old."
Oh, I thought it was that she was dead, or that like my character's not alive. Maybe it was the age though.
I heard it
It's
more
been a
recently.
while. I remember that quote though.
I heard it more recently,
Yeah,
and I'll find the source and get it to you.
Okay, because that changes a lot of stuff. Obviously, we have an age on Mel's, or a number on Mel's age, I think. So if you guys could confirm that. Not to go back on the Ed Sheeran thing again. Like I said, I had no problems with his role or whatever. The one thing that did bother me was when I think it was the producer said that he was chosen for his acting skills or his perfection for the role, something to that effect. Sorry, he was fine, but he was not chosen for his acting chops. Just a little bit of a pet peeve of mine when when directors claim they choose an actor or a YouTuber or a singer or an Instagrammer or whatever specifically because they're perfect for a role or because they're an actor. Anyway, just want to get that out of off my chest. Niko, you had a brilliant thought on Dragonglass/Obsidian being a potential cure for grayscale. It would actually give potentially some credence as to why grayscale is so overwhelmingly present in a post-apocalyptic Valyria. Maybe that has a role to play with the Doom. I mean, beforehand it was, the Valyrian homeland, and now it's riddled with these creatures infested with grayscale. So it kind of, in some way, lend itself to your theory, and I think maybe you're onto something there. It would be really cool if that's the case. Now, King's Landing. Okay, so James, you mentioned there was a mirroring between, Cersei talking about, her family members being alive and now they're dead with Robb, or with Sansa and her opinion of Robb and her other brothers. I love that mirroring. Didn't think of it, but it's really true. I want to go back on the Maggie the Frog prophecy here, because technically it actually did come true now. I mean, Maggie did say she would be, or Maggie told Cersei she would be queen until a younger, more beautiful queen would take all she holds dear. And in the context of the show, the queen was Marjorie. She did take all her children's lives. Cersei full on said this episode that she held her children dearly, and now they're gone. Now she has like nothing left but her own wrath and ego. And she is, I guess, in a sense, reborn as a new queen. But like James said, or quoted, I should say, in this episode, and I said that both as James Johnson and there's also James or Jaime Lannister, actually, a dynasty for whom 1,000 years, she's basically just a queen of 2, maybe 3 kingdoms, really. She doesn't really have everything anymore. There's nothing there. And I think it also, like you said, hints at her madness kind of revealing itself, or at least it seems like it. We are also seemingly getting more Cersei Jaime tension finally. However, what I want to know is, why is Jaime so easygoing with the notion of Cersei possibly marrying Euron? That's one thing that kind of, not to say it rubs me the wrong way, but it's a little interesting that he's so relaxed with that, especially now that I would think that all he wants is for him and Cersei to be together. And even if it's a marriage of convenience, it does seem to kind of go in the face of that just a little bit. Speaking of Euron, you guys were talking about the possibility of a dragon horn, or some people in my comments were talking about the possibility of having him having a dragon horn and that being his trump card. Don't think it's the case here, at least not in the same way as it might be intended in the books. I think the notion of Euron controlling dragons could be a little too complicated in the show, in my opinion, but I could be wrong, and I'll leave my thoughts just at that, because I think then it goes way too much into like the spoiler room or leak mill. So that's all we'll say with that. Euron, so Euron in the show this season, I think he's he's going to be, obviously, I have no doubt he'll be evil and epic, kind of like in the last chapter that was revealed of him in the books. But I do think he's kind of just a placeholder form of evil, and in the sense that he's not meant to last. You know, we had sort of like a Joffrey character who was like that epic evil bad character who was just pure wrong and psychopathic. And then that guy gets killed off, and then there's Ramsay, who was, you know, the even worse version of Joffrey, takes things a step further, and then he gets killed off. I think Euron is kind of like that temporary bad guy in the series. Obviously, I think the ultimate evil or the ultimate focus or the conflict is supposed to be against the White Walkers. But I think for season six specifically, maybe at the very beginning of season 7, I think that's going to be ended here. I think Euron is like the bad guy for this series, for this season rather. And I would be kind of surprised if he outlives this season, just because it would go a little bit too much into the conflict with the White Walkers. But, you know, I guess we'll see. He could very well outlive this season. That's pretty much all my thoughts on all of that, and I will end it there.
Great. Good job, Charlie. Mama Jamma?
Oh my goodness, you guys have such good points. First thing James said about this was when Cersei said that that her son had betrayed her. All of us winced at that. But what she meant was when he said trial by combat would be abolished. Now, Tommen, I don't think Tommen understood the consequences of that, which the Faith militant, the High Sparrow, did. But what it effectively did was to take Cersei's big win at her trial away. I mean, if she's simply going to be judged by the Septons, well, she's a dead woman. Now, again, Tommen didn't know that, but back to Cersei's narcissism. Next to the word CUNT and narcissist in the dictionary is a huge picture of Cersei Lannister. Now, with respect to that legacy, I agree with you, James. You know, this is what Tywin kept saying, you know, we need a legacy, we need a legacy. Well, if you don't have children, pretend that you are one of those top 1% people with billions and billions and billions of dollars. If you don't have a family to leave it to, what are you going to do with it? I mean, that's effectively what is being asked here, I think, by Martin. Wouldn't you want to be, and I'm not a big Bill Gates fan, but let me just use him as an example. If you have all this money and you are going to die one day and you don't have family, wouldn't you want to do something to better the world instead of maybe you eating another Eggs Benedict? You know, but Cersei's going to do it because, as she said, I do it because it feels good. That is what she's going to do. No matter what, it's always going to be for her to feel good. With respect to Jaime's reaction to this, Jaime is over a barrel right now. He doesn't have any family left except for her. And he, as you all know, he has been attached to her from the moment they came out of the womb or even in the womb. And she has manipulated him from the beginning. I mean, this girl, whether she was a narcissist before her mother died or not, her worldview is completely distorted. We won't talk about the nature versus nurture, but Jaime is a sheep. He has been manipulated by her forever. Now, as to the present situation, he told her, we are flanked on all sides. We don't have 7 kingdoms. We have 3 at best. He may very well play into the idea that we need Euron at some point with his fleet to save King's Landing. And if that means that she has to marry him and F him, Jaime may buy in, because after all, he did buy in when she married Robert, didn't he? I mean, he was okay with her effing him when she had to, or licking the sticky princess off her hand. He would stay a side man. Now, that's the past history. As we know in the books, whether or not he comes back or not before the end of these books, we don't know yet. But as of where we're left in the books, Jaime has already said to her, without saying it, when she sends a message to him saying, come help me, he tears it up and burns it. So we know he's going to be out of here soon. And in the books, she screwed everybody. She even screwed the Kettle Blacks and Moon Boy. That wasn't true. But he is going to be out of here at some point. With respect to, oh my God, with respect to Euron Greyjoy, I think he nailed it. I loved his swagger. He is a pirate. somebody said, well, he just looks like a pirate. And I'm like, yeah, he is a pirate. That is what he is. He's a reaver, and he's not a good pirate like Saladin, who, by the way, we have not mentioned, and I cannot wait for that man to come back. By the way, I don't know if you all know this, but that actor is a classically trained actor who has created his own acting troupes. He has a huge history of dramatic arts. I love him. I hope he comes back. I talked to my brother the other day about Euron, and I said, he is the big bad, no question. For this season, he's the big bad. But in the books, if you haven't read those chapters that have been released, especially the recent one, that is the most Cthulhian horror nightmare of a chapter about his brother. I mean, he is a monster. He is 20 times worse than Ramsay, and he is starting to nail it now. I loved it. When he says that when he was a little boy, all he dreamed about was marrying a beautiful woman, blah, blah, blah. It goes right back to Cersei, and she doesn't look very beautiful anymore. That's Dany. So he's going to screw Cersei big time. Cersei's not going to die, though, because she's Machiavellian. And with respect to the dragon horn, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, that dragon horn was it's nothing. It's just a red herring. Can't control those dragons any more than Quentin Martell did, and we know how that ended. So, yeah, he's going to get the sand snakes, and he's going to go get Ilaria, because who killed Myrcella? Ilaria. That's his gift to Cersei. And, oh, my God, you think Septa Unella had a bad death? Wait for Ilaria.
Got it. There we go. Mom, you're completely fucking right about the betrayal. I was viewing that the wrong way. I mean, I don't think Jamie knows, because Jamie doesn't know the depth of it. But when she says she was betrayed by Tony, she's talking about his joining the faith and his ending of the trial by combat. Maester Payne?
Sorry, my control pads fucked up because I punched it one time. So I have, again, a lot. Just talking to Charlie earlier. I hate to keep going back there, but the dragons, it was... The parallel between Cersei and her kids is one of the dragons is wild, crazy, she has no control over him, and the other two are tame. She has a little bit of control over them, yet they're still dragons. They're not a slave. They still have their own mind. That's the parallel there with Dany and Cersei. Now, this, because of listening to you guys, this is what popped into my head. I'm going to ask you guys all, does Tyrion have a kid? And if you look at the song that was sung, it's Tyrion's song. Ed Sheeran sang Tyrion's song. So they're giving a call back to possibly Tyrion has a kid. So when you talk about no legacy, well, maybe Tyrion has a Lannister there somewhere, because he was wed when he was with that girl. It got annulled, but at the time he was wed. So Lannisters might not be done. I don't know what that means. After listening to LaDonna, it was Cersei is the definition of bad pussy, which is interesting compared to Jamie. But she did, when Euron showed up, Cersei played him. Euron had no anything against her. Euron was shit. I hated the whole scene. I hate Euron. I hate that actor. I hate everything about it. Cersei knew what he wanted, and she just said no. And what's he going to do? Go and say, okay, well, I'll just go sail my ships back. She knew exactly what's going to happen. He's not going to give up. He's not going to say, oh, well, I guess I'll just let them go and do their stuff. He's going to go out and do whatever he has to do. So Cersei had the exact right move, which was something. I agree with everybody that Euron in the story is the ultimate villain. He's just not showing it right now. LaDonna was saying something about the Lannisters having money. They don't have any money anymore, as far as I can tell. And Sansa has come full circle. And if you realize she doesn't have the slash in her jewelry anymore, it's not there. It's just a full circle. There's no middle piece, which was, so now she's turning into Cersei, so she's going to become power hungry. And that's everything I got to say. Nobody's listening.
And Niko.
So, Charlie, I really like this thing, what you said about the, can you hear me? Guys, James, can you hear me, guys?
Do what?
Okay. So, I love what Charlie said about Euron being the third great villain because it makes total sense. I already spoke, I think, about when we talked about last season, that I don't think Euron's gonna play a big part. Like he's, you know, expendable. How do you say it in English? Expendable. He's replaceable, but he's gonna do some damage. He's only here to do some damage, you know, too. But he's gonna be the end of Cersei, you know, like the last drop. I don't think that, you know, there's some big thing. And but the gift I think they're gonna do in the show at least, is gonna be Ilaria or old Sand Snakes. So we can finally be done with Dorne, because who the fuck cares about Dorne anyway? I really like the map that Cersei was, you know, hired an artist to do. It was really, really good. The only thing about this part of the thing I wanted to mention, Cersei's acting. What I noticed, maybe I'm just imagining it, but I swear to God, I saw the great thing about her acting when she's sitting on the Iron Throne and she's like holding her hands like this and then doing this with her fingers. It's the same thing what how Charles Dance acted Tywin. When he was playing Tywin. So it's exactly the same thing. And I tweet, I mean, she's not gonna read the tweet, but whatever, but I really tweeted her because I really liked it. I think she worked on it. And you know, like Charles Dance, when he's talking, you know, somebody's talking to him and he tends to like lean in the chair and do this with his fingers. This is like exactly what she's doing. And, you know, like it's really good acting. I think she was working on it. So, you know, kudos to you. I felt really bad for Jaime in these scenes because, you know, like, okay, you have this back and forth with Cersei and Euron, and he's showing up, but Jaime is like, you know, what the fuck am I gonna do? You know, I have this crazy woman that I love, but I don't know how to handle anymore. My kids are dead, and she's, you know, like, I cannot reach to her. She's not listening to me. So I think he's gonna be the big dude as he always does, and, you know, like fight for her shit or whatever. But, you know, like he's this close to just, you know, give up on everything. Somebody also asked me about these Euron ships, like the how did they manage to build it? Who the fuck cares? I mean, I'm sorry guys, but these things really annoy me. Like, okay, but you cannot have 3 seasons of building ships. Who the fuck cares about how they build the ships? He stole the ships. You know, he's a pirate, right? If he's a pirate, he just steals. It doesn't matter. It really, I mean, if you want to, then don't watch the show. You know, wait 25 years for George maybe to write a book. What the fuck? Who cares? You know, we're gonna end this show in 2 years. It's done fucking finally. I mean, I want to see the end. I want to see how it all ends. So, people are so annoying sometimes. Sorry. And one more thing, I forgot to mention about Gilly scene. I like her that she's, you know, like sitting there taking care of the child, but also, you know, reading. And also in the whole episode, you can see that the girls are playing big part. In every scene, you have Lyanna Mormont, you know, doing her thing. Then you have Daenerys, of course. Gilly actually handing the book to, or discussing the things with Sam. So she's also playing the part in like research. Who else do we have? Well, Cersei, of course. So I think that's it from me. I don't know what else to say. I have a few more things to say, but I'm gonna say that when it comes to Sansa part. So that's it.
Wonderful stuff. TeeBaby?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I hate this mute button. First of all, before I say anything, Niko, I love the fact that you're right with the little mannerisms with the fingers and stuff. Tywin does do that. In fact, if you watch that episode where Tyrion was on trial, he justices himself. So she does do that. And she did mention that, you know, she is from dealing with Tywin. Like, of course, she learned something from him. So I definitely agree with you on that. As far as thought for a second. Wait, bring it back. All right, so with Cersei, well, let me talk about Jaime first, because I can't stand Jaime, and I think Jaime's a hypocrite, because the main thing that set him apart, that everyone loves Jaime, is because he stood up to the Mad King and he saved all these people's lives. And then your sister goes around and actually does it, and he just seems like he's cool with it. And that I just don't understand. Like, to me, that makes Jaime kind of a bitch, because I think, like, for someone else to do it, but when your sister does it, you're cool with it. Any actions, like last season, he looked mortified, and he should, because the main thing he was trying to prevent from Mad King, Cersei actually went ahead and went through it. Then it's the whole conversation about their children, where she does admit that she doesn't care, basically, that Tommen is dead. She said he betrayed me. So into her eyes, he was a traitor. The second he sided with the faith and said there was no trial by combat, I think she dismissed him. I don't really care for on that. But to go back to her, the actress who plays her, because she does such a good job. If you notice, Euron's talking to her and he's saying, like, you don't want me, you want the fleet and all the power so you can control the sea. You look at her face, she starts smiling like she's getting off on the fact that she's going to be able to control all of this. So that's the part that I really enjoyed. Her interaction with Jaime, I feel as though, even I don't really care for these two characters, I feel like Jon and Sansa, if they were actually to interact the way that Cersei actually listens to Jaime, that the North would be in a better situation. I'm pretty sure we'll go into more details when we get to the North, but as far as like with Cersei, I think that oh, another thing that I want to real quick point out, Cersei and what's his name? And Jaime, they're having a conversation. And one thing that they did bring up was that, you know, Jaime says that Dany's gonna land on Dragonstone, which he was correct. But he said you also need to worry about, you know, feeding your horses and people. And if you remember, I don't know if it was last season or season 5, where Lady Olenna was saying, like, we'll starve them out. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking Cersei's also thinking that they need to take over or gain control over Highgarden. I just have a feeling, just because Jaime threw that out there. But that's all I have to say. I don't really care for Jaime. I think I find it hard for him to now separate himself from Cersei, because if that didn't separate him from Cersei, I'm not sure what would, unless it would be that she decides to have sex with Euron and he finds out. That's the only way that I can think of. But you guys nailed it.
All right, and Tony, what you think about all this going on in King's Landing?
All right, so you know, I told you a long time ago, check the videos that Cersei was hooking up with Euron. You know I did. That's just the way it is. I mean, I like the way Euron Greyjoy did his thing, but every time I see the man, I just wish Mads Mikkelsen was playing him. I really do. I mean, I thought the guy did a good job, but Mads Mikkelsen is Euron Greyjoy to me, and that's the bottom line. When you're dealing with the Cersei and the Jaime dynamic, not a lot really went down in King's Landing for me. I think that Cersei, this is her high point that you're going to see. She may have one other high point with Euron. The gifts is definitely, no doubt, going to be the woman from Dorne. Most likely Yara is going to go down that route too, because you see them making out in the trailer and she's with Yara on the boat. So obviously if Yara's getting bagged, she's getting bagged too. I mean, she's getting bagged, Yara's getting bagged. They're all going to get bagged up. You know what I mean? I think they're all going out. I think Euron's taking all of them out. Euron is definitely, if you want to call it, the big bad of the season. I think that you still have to have something next season. I I don't think you can have 6 episodes of them fighting the White Walkers. So I think that it's still got to carry over into next season somehow. So I think that he may not die this season. Definitely believe 100%. Now, even though we have the song that was Tyrion talking about Shay, and that's the song that he sung to himself when he was strangling Shay, the song that he was blackmailed for, it does set up Jaime Lannister doing that to her and Jaime being the other person, and it could be a reason why they have it, saying that Jaime Lannister is going to be the one to kill Cersei and strangle her. But me personally, I really do believe that is Euron that's going to do it. Euron is the Valancourt. We see how he treats women, and especially in the Forsaken chapter. I think he fits the bill. I think that he'll be perfect for him because Jaime Lannister still only has one hand. The prophecy specifically says hands. So I just can't get past that myself. Does it fit better probably for the story that it could be Jaime? Maybe so, but I just can't get past the hands. And when I look at the hands, especially when Euron points out the fact in the show that he has 2 hands. And the fact that he points that out specifically, the prophecy says hands, it really has to lead me to believe, without a shadow of a doubt, quote the Don, we pull the strings, that Euron Greyjoy will definitely strangle Cersei. We see in the Forsaken chapter that he is on the throne, and he has a woman next to him. The woman is described as tall and pale. That's definitely Cersei. When we hear pale Valancourt around your neck, I just have to think that it goes down like that with them. I really don't have anything much more to say about King. I don't think anything else happened in King's Landing for me to say anything about, but that's basically all I got to say about King's Landing. Euron, Valancourt.
That's a great fucking point, Tony. I still think Jaime, but that's a great fucking point about he specifically said 2 hands in that scene. That's a great fucking point. There's really not a whole lot going on at King's Landing right now. So last but not least, we've got the Jon, Sansa, Brienne, and Littlefinger situation. I think a lot of people are pissed off at Sansa, and I think it is totally unjustified. I understand that to a certain extent you want a semblance of a direct leader. But at the same time, it's important for people to be questioned. We don't live in a society where the ruler just does what the fuck they want. They need to be questioned, and publicly. How can a populace question a ruler unless it's done publicly? They send him letters. He's supposed to respond to everything. You need a parliament. You need a Congress. Yeah, you have a president, but the president gets questioned on fucking everything. You have a media. You have public comment. So I think it's important that he be questioned. Yes, Sansa came on a little strong.
You also have Twitter. Sorry for interrupting you, but for president, you also have Twitter.
Do what? Say it again.
Presidents also have Twitter accounts, I had to put that in, man.
Presidents could be fucking Joffreys, or absolute idiots, just incompetent. So it's important for a leader to be questioned, even harshly. And Jon says at the end, my word is final, and Sansa accepts it. Her disagreement is different. So I'm of the opinion that what they're building up in the show is they're pitting Sansa and Jon against each other so that Sansa can make decisions later that we are uncertain whether she's doing it for her own benefit or for the benefit of everybody. It will ultimately be for the benefit of everybody, but we need to be in a position where she's making choices where we go, Jesus, Sansa, are you really going to do that? You're going to fuck over? Fill in the blank. Jon, whoever, the North. It's important for those seeds of discontent to be sowed. That said, and she tells him, you are least like Joffrey that I've ever seen, but you still have to compare a leader to other leaders. Trump is not Hitler. Trump is not Nero. But Trump's, I don't want to get into politics. My personal opinion, there can be leaders that are complete nincompoops, but who aren't masterminding a genocide. So anyway, it's important that Jon be questioned. I think what Sansa's doing is okay. She comes off a little harsh, I agree, but just the fact that she comes off harsh is a good sign. It means that she is using power when it's granted to her. I know it was cheap thrills, but god damn, it was good to hear Jon say that women need to fight too, and to have Lyanna Mormont say, I'm as much a Northman as you, and then to cut off that lord to say it was wonderful. It's an important scene, and it was really wonderful. And as much as the U.S. Army just recently started There's countries that have been doing that for a very fucking long time. Israel, for example. So it just seems like an obvious thing to do. Same thing with homosexuality in the military. If we're going to fight, everybody who wants to fight should be allowed to fight, rather that than a draft. So those minor things. That said, what Sansa and Jon's disagreement to me is an important and justified argument. Neither of them are correct. This is a decision that has to be made. First of all, a son should not be blamed for their parents' mistakes. That said, there has to be a punishment to, if you're going to have a hereditary lordship, there has to be some punishment that affects the entire family. Otherwise, any one bad seed, you get rid of that one bad seed and it goes back to the family. I don't have an answer to that question, but that's kind of the point, that both of them have valid points. And then you have that little boy named Ned come around, and Alice Karstark, who Jon has known since he was a little kid. And there's some people in the crowd that bang on the table and cheer for Jon to not give them the household. And then once they get it, a lot of people clap. So there's clearly opposing opinions. Anyway, it's important to have this open parliament situation. So that's the initial part. I mentioned the ties between Cersei and Sansa in this episode. Sansa clearly did learn a lot from Cersei. Littlefinger is playing his games and Sansa is trying to play him. It was lovely to hear her use the quips. I'll assume it was something clever. Those were great, and it's important to see that. She's coming off a little harsh, but I think I got to repeat it. That's extremely important. You got to come off a little harsh if you want to exert power. And imagine, I'm not trying to put any details on my mom that she may think don't apply to her, or to act like I know what I'm talking about. But as far as I know, she was the second female attorney in the county that I grew up in. And if you're going to be an attorney against you're not even 30 years old, you're one of the first female attorneys in not only the state, but particularly in the county you're in, and you're dealing with 50, 60-year-old men who've been doing it their whole lives and already know that intimidation is a strong tool, and now you got a woman across the table from them, you're going to get a lot of intimidation. How do you respond? You got to respond harshly, not necessarily in your tone, but in a way that lets them know that they are under threat as well. And that's important for Sansa. She's a woman, empowered. She needs to use the power where it's possible, and that's against Jon and against Littlefinger. I say against. It's in opposition to, not necessarily against. So, loved Brienne and Tormund. I don't know where the fuck that's going, but it's very entertaining. Apparently, they cut out a scene. They cut out some dialogue between Brienne and Tormund that was R-rated according to the article. I don't know what was said, but apparently they cut it out. And you can tell something was said because she nabs her shit and leaves. Podrick is learning how to fight, still practicing. So he knows how to use a lot of different kinds of swords, if you know what I'm saying. I'm trying to think what else there was at Winterfell. Clearly, decisions have to be made about where people are going. Jon is going to leave. He has to leave to get an army. I don't know if he's going to leave specifically for the case of getting the army, if he's leaving for the dragon glass. Sansa's going to leave too eventually. I don't know when that's going to happen. And Bran is going to be headed to Winterfell. I don't think Bran and Jon are going to meet. I think Sansa and Bran may. I don't think it's likely. I don't have an answer to that. Thoughts, Charlie?
All right, I'm gonna have to keep this really short, guys, because I have some guests over. I'm gonna have to get it going, but I'll give my thoughts and I'll peace out if it's all good with you guys. All right, so just want to make sure I don't have anything to respond to from earlier. Nope, doesn't look like it. Okay, so Jon Snow, manning the wall with the wildlings. It was one of those throwback plot lines that happened way back in the books, but they're kind of just catching up on that in the show right now. I think in the books it was like book 4 or 5, so it's kind of interesting to see how, even though the books have surpassed the show has surpassed the books, there's still a few things there that are, I guess, relevant to the show, catching up to the books, like this one. Obviously, there's a teasing of a potential conflict between Jon and Sansa. was a little weird having Littlefinger act creepy towards Sansa this scene. I kind of feel like it downplayed his epicness, his epicness, like in the books, by overemphasizing his love for Sansa. And also seems weird considering he basically sold her out to the Boltons. It's basically a point a bunch of us have brought up over and over again, evidently, but it's something that bothers me whenever I see him on the show. It doesn't really make me enjoy the character as much on the TV show as I do in the books. That's basically all my thoughts. You kind of covered a lot of things in your when you spoke, James, so I'm going to leave it at that. Folks, thank you so much for having me. Take care. I look forward to next week's episode. Really excited.
Love you, Charlie. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, as always.
See ya.
See ya, MB. See ya, James. TeeBaby, Niko, and Tony, and LaDonna.
Mama Jamma?
Okay, I really, really loved this scene, these scenes. So let me address it real quickly. First of all, Sansa should not have called Jon down in front of that meeting. However, Jon shouldn't have made the decision without consulting his cabinet first. So both of their reactions were, not reactions, but their actions were inappropriate. And both of their arguments were absolutely true. And James, thank you for giving me a little respect for being one of the few female lawyers in the South. And I was one of 3, but one was a government lawyer and the other one did not do trial work. So I dealt with men a lot. I played my own little Game of Thrones. And yeah, you have to balance being aggressive and assertive. And I think I did it, but it was difficult. And I really do get what Sansa's going through right now. So let me go back to their scene for a moment. They both had great points. And I almost felt like I was watching the Nuremberg trials, which I watched that movie recently. And people argued both those points. Fuck them, take them out of their houses, kill them, versus, well, you know, some of these people were innocent and maybe we should give them a chance and we need them. And by God, Jon does need them. We have a tremendous war coming against global warming. I mean, the Night's King. But well, I mean, it isn't just about global warming. It's about the planet and about climate. It's about global issues. That's what this is about. Martin is a genius, and he has certainly metaphored it into this show. So I loved their discourse, and I love the fact that they took it out of it later and brought it into a private area where they got to talk about it. And she said, you know, if you don't let me talk to you, that's what somebody like Joffrey does. And Jon says, do you really think I'm like Joffrey? And she says, no, you're the farthest thing from Joffrey. But he says, what do you want me to do? And she said, would it be so terrible for you to just listen to me? I mean, that's a diplomatic pose. Just listen to me. And let me tell you guys, I know that Jon is a Targaryen. He's Stargaryen. But he is not supposed to be the leader of Winterfell. Ostensibly, Sansa shouldn't either because she is a woman. So neither of them really have the claim to Winterfell. So, but Sansa is Ned's daughter. If we go patriarchally, Bran should be the leader of Winterfell at this point. So I find this dynamic really very interesting. Now, I've listened to the chat, and a lot of people are still on Sansa's ass. I'm going to take her position, but I'm also going to take it a little farther than what this discussion has been. I think that Sansa, we know that she has been, she's been victimized and risen above it, but we also know that she had to take on an identity of the Vale that wasn't hers. She knows how to play the game. She's watched 2 battles from a pretty good viewpoint. She watched Stannis go down from the tower, and she was on the Battle of the Bastards field. And I don't want to hear any bitching about Sansa not telling Jon. If she had told Jon the plan with her bringing the veil in, and we didn't really even know if they were coming. I don't even think she knew they were coming. Think about the fog of war. Yeah, she sent a message to Littlefinger. Doesn't mean she knows he's coming. But if she did, Jon would have taken them in as the first vanguard, and they all would have been wiped out. So do not get me started on that. Because if that hadn't happened, and I think a lot of it was fortuitous, but if it hadn't happened that way, that battle would have gone the other way. So I'm not saying it was all Sansa's great victory. It just happened that way. But I love their repartee. Now, here's what I really think Sansa's going to do. I think, leave the Hound out of it for a minute. I think what she's going to do is when all hell has broken loose in King's Landing, and Littlefinger is going to take the throne. He is going to take the throne. By God, he said, I thought it, I'm going to bring it out of my mind into the world. I think that he becomes a threat to the north, and Sansa goes down and becomes his queen. Not because she's against Jon, but quite the opposite. I think she is going to pretend that she is against Jon, and she is going to go down and wipe the fuck out of Littlefinger so the north is protected. That is what I think is going to happen. And if you have not read the book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, it is a great anthropological book that is hilarious and funny. It has all these stories about women with their swishy wolf tails hidden beneath their dresses, and they just hide until they can come out. Martin has written a book called The She-Wolves of Winterfell. Remember that. She's a wolf. She's a she-wolf. She will be vicious when it's necessary, but she doesn't love Littlefinger. She knows he fucked her over. She's going to take him down, but it's going to look like she's against the Starks for a while, and she's going to take that goddamn risk to help her family. And God bless her. Yeah, she started out as a bratty goddamn 11-year-old, and I hated her as much as you did, but you're wrong if you think she's against the Starks. She knows who her family is. I also think that Jon may have made an error with respect to the Umber House, Ned, that little boy. I think he may end up being an Ollie character. I mean, we can't have everything great. Alice Karstark in the books was a friend of Jon's as a child. They played together. Alice actually rides a dying horse to the wall to beg Jon to take her in when the Karstarks decide they're going to go against the Starks. So I think she's trustworthy. I don't think Ned may be. He's a little boy, and remember, we can put him in the Tommen camp. Somebody may manipulate him. With respect to James's comment about Brienne and Tormund, yeah, there was another scene, and it was something really horribly sexy that Tormund said to Brienne, and it reminds me of the last scene in The Quiet Man. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a great movie with Maureen O'Hara and John Wayne, and they're in a wagon together at the end. It's in Ireland, and at the end of it, he whispers something into Maureen O'Hara's ear, and Maureen O'Hara, the actress, looks at him like, oh my fucking God, what did you just say? And later on he said something incredibly sexual and really kind of nasty to her. And it's in the movie, but you can't hear it. So I love that. And that is all I have to say about that.
Great fucking job, Mama. Maester Payne? And yes, we are listening, Maester Payne, because we love you.
Thank you very much. First thing I want to say is sibling rivalry throughout the series from the beginning has been extremely apparent, and I can't take credit for this. This is pointed out to me by various numerous friends. But consider Arya and Sansa, Jon and Robb, Cersei and Tyrion, Robert, Stannis, Renly, everybody's always at war with each other when it's the siblings. So that's an apparent thing. Sansa and Jon seem to have it correct. You have this debate between you where it's communication, which is another thing that I think the whole series is about communication. That's the common tongue. We get to talk to each other. We don't have to fight. We can talk and we can figure shit out. But people don't agree with that. So I figured that was a beautiful scene. I saw both points of both things. I think personally, John's in the right. Loyalty, you don't get rewarded for loyalty. You're just loyal. You're just loyal. I mean, yes, I agree with Sansa too, that the villain or the people that fought for you should maybe get something, but I think that means to be at a later date. Maybe you break up some lands or something like that or something, but right now I think John made the best choice possible, and he said, you know what, I need you guys here. This is your home. This is your home. I'm not going to blame you for something which nobody should ever do. Why? That's how our wars continue on. That's why we're still fighting shit today, is blaming fucking the sons for the father's fucking sins. It's ridiculous. So personally, I think John made the right choice, and that's it at that. I have a great point, LaDonna, here, but I'm sorry, I don't know what it was. But anyways, LaDonna, you made a great point. It just says GP LaDonna, so that means LaDonna made a great point. Then I have something about Jorah, which I think was the same thing I said earlier, whereas he's truly loyal. He's not doing it for anything besides love. He's just loyal. She refuses him love, but he's still loyal to her, and that was my whole thing. Then I have LaDonna's name written down here again. And then I have catharsis and Dionysus, which is, again, I apologize if we're not talking exactly extreme what you had discussed, James, but the White Walkers are Dionysus. And what Dionysus is, besides the god of wine and everything like that, is an event that comes into the world in literature. You'll see it in literature. That's neither good nor evil, but just does its thing. And in the end of it, it's an epiphany and a catharsis. And then you have balance once again. And that's what the White Walkers are. They're not good. They're not evil. They're just them. They're just doing what they're supposed to do. And Dionysus, again, is also the god of rebirth and birth, or birth and rebirth. And he's also known as the twice-birthed sun. So that's a thing. Sansa, when talking to John on the rafters, when she says that you're the furthest thing that I've ever seen from Joffrey, she forgets that what she just did in that room was what Joffrey did. That was what Joffrey did. It's like, well, they have the minds of women, but they betrayed me, so I cut off Ned's head. Sorry, I just punched a fan. She's come full circle, and that's what her symbol does not have that cross anymore. She's full circle. She's now Cersei, hopefully a good Cersei, but she's still Cersei. And just like Dany, I don't think Dany's bad. I just think that Dany's Cersei as well. She's doing the same things. It's this possession of what you think, and it's not the right thing in your head. You cannot strive for power. You have to just to strive for being what you're going to be. Spill it, Jimmy Kimmel. Something about Jimmy Kimmel, I can't remember it. Anybody know? No.
Nope.
Okay, last point is, and this was the question to everybody, and it doesn't really revolve around this show, but it's something that I saw when the Hound was looking into the fire, and I'm a little bit late. Okay, and James, you touched on this earlier, and I really wanted to question you about it, but the weirwood trees, you look in the past. You don't see future. The fire, you see the future. You see things that are about to happen, not things that are happening. But the glass candles appear to be the middle ground, like the current, the now. This is where we are. But James, you said that at one point Bran saw the future, and I'm curious about that. What was that? You can jump in.
First of all, great fucking point, and that's the way I would view it. The fire is the uncertain future. The weirwood trees are the solid past, and the obsidian candles are going on right now. But with the answer, in answer to your question, when Bran touches the weirwood tree, he sees the explosion under the sept of the wildfire that happened later.
Oh, okay, but that's show though, right? That's only show.
That's only show.
Okay, that's good. No, good point. What I would argue with you for that case, though, is keep your mic on. Don't worry, you can jump back in. I hate this when I just talk and nobody can jump in and say, shut up.
No, don't. There is no shut up. That's the point. There is no shut up. Somebody makes their point, and then we move on.
Yeah, but nobody ever talks about stuff after that. I think that in the past, you can still misinterpret stuff. Just because Bran sees something that he sees, he doesn't necessarily know that that's the accurate occurrence. It's just like everybody that sees, like Jojen Reed saw the waves come over Winterfell and everybody, and Bran and whatever died, but Bran didn't die. Bran's still alive. There's misinterpretation on all levels. So it's basically like what we think about our history is not exactly right. We have what's told to us, that's what we see, but it's not definitely true. And this goes to the Maester saying that we're the memories of the world. Well, we already know from the Book of Ice and Fire, the World of Ice and Fire, that that's bullshit. They just write what we want to hear and what whoever in power wants to hear. So the histories, I don't think, are concrete either. I think there's a change there. And that's all I had to say about everything. Sorry, guys. I love you. Bye.
No need for apologies, MP. You're fucking brilliant, as are all the people on here, and every single one of your opinions is necessary for this group to be whole. So everybody always feels like they're the only one talking. That's because it's your turn to talk. Okay. Niko.
Okay, my favorite part. Sansa and Arya. Listen, I really do not hate anybody except Robert Baratheon. I fucking hated that guy. But, and I understand what you are saying, James, especially what LaDonna is saying. Of course, I understand. But it's simply not the case what we're getting. It's like don't get me wrong, I love you guys, but it sounds like you're trying to convince yourself. I don't see it that way. Maybe it's just, different perspective. So I'm going to try to be succinct as much as possible. In this episode, we get Arya like in the beginning and Sansa like in the beginning, like when we first met them. You have Arya interacting with plebs, like just commoners, and being really normal with them, being able to communicate with people and not being a total cunt. Unlike Sansa, who's doing the biggest mistake. Like it's not a pet peeve. It irks me so much. Like everybody probably who's watching, and all of you guys from the council have encountered this, and I fucking hate it. When there's a couple, you're sitting with a couple, and they start bickering. It's so fucking annoying. Like, if you have your own shit, do it at, privately at home. Don't do it in front of everybody. I hate that. And I always tell that to my husband, like, don't do that with me in front of people. If you have some issues, you're like, in front of everybody, I'm the best, I'm the prettiest, I'm the smartest. But, if you have issues with me, deal it with home. Like, I just don't like that. So this is what she was doing what was she trying to achieve? Yes, of course, he needs to be questioned. But, let's be honest, they're not discussing diplomacy with plebs, commoners. They're discussing diplomacy, what they're going to do with the, heads of big families, with the big guys. They're not discussing the war things with, some wench. I don't know how to use that word, right? So, and this is the reality of the world, big decisions are not, it is democracy. We have democracies mostly in most countries in the world, but it's not actually democracy because, big decisions are made by, guys in the position to do so. So, and this is what's happening there. So for her to question him in front of everybody, it was just poor taste. And this is what bothered people, not like, I don't know what. And he told her that, and she still doesn't understand, like, you have no idea. Like, How did she learn diplomacy or being manipulative from Cersei or from Littlefinger? Because Littlefinger would never do that in front of everybody. I mean, she's just stupid. She's so fucking stupid, and this is what bothers me. Like, shut the fuck up, Sansa, now. And also, if you think about these things, so she learned from Cersei, quote unquote, she didn't learn shit, from Cersei and Littlefinger, and Jon learned from Mormont, from what was this guy? I really like that guy. He was a ranger, and then he told Jon to kill him. You know, when he was first going to meet Mance Rayder. So he was learning from the good guys. She learned from the really, really nasty people. So what does it make her? It doesn't make her a good person, because she wasn't a good person to begin with. And what people really forget about is that this growing thing, you cannot change person's personality. The who you are, it doesn't change. You can change, you know, tweak a little some things, but the essence of you, and in the essence, she's a fucking spoiled brat. And she still is. She acts like that, you know, like now she just seems so entitled, you know, like, oh, Littlefinger, you know, like, why you wanted to say something wise. It's like, oh my God. I don't like the actress. I don't like anything about Sansa. Not in the books. In the books, she's also like, oh my God. So this is what bothers me. Like, what is this growth? What the fuck did she achieve in the whole fucking show? Just being, you know, like, looking on the side and, you know, like, judging people. She's just, this is what... Just do something good, you know, like, do something good for your fucking brother. He's your brother, you know, like, don't put him down in front of other people. If you have some, of course, she has a good point, but do it, you know, behind closed doors, not in front of everybody. Oh, fucking Sansa. So please, maybe you try to explain to me, like, what did she learn? If she learned these things that you talk about, then she would tell him, you know, like, beforehand or something, not like in front of everybody. So that means she learned shit. Fucking, I fucking hate Sansa. So, who else really enjoyed the way Tormund was looking at Brienne? I mean, it will never go old. This thing I really enjoy, and I like that they included in this season. And also Lyanna Mormont, I mean, they're doing fans a favor, of course, but I mean, everybody enjoys it. So I'm gonna end on a good note. And LaDonna, I love you to death. So this has nothing to do against LaDonna. Please, guys, in the comments, don't take it the wrong way. LaDonna knows, and I learned so much from LaDonna. So sorry about the rant, and go Arya. Oh yeah, and I always question Arya. Sorry, I always question it because I feel sorry for her that she's so dark, and you know, like, this revenge. I don't justify her actions at all. Never. I never did that. I mean, I did root for, you know, killing Walder Frey's because, you know, it's just. But when you seriously think about it, I don't justify it. But that doesn't mean that she's not, you know, like, she's more pleasant. And Sansa is, like Italians would say, maleducata, which is, you know, like, not polite. She's just, I hate not people who are not polite. So sorry, guys, for the rant. I hope you understood what I was saying. And that's it. Thank you.
Niko, I totally get what you're saying. I disagree with it about Sansa. I would interpret what you're saying as a misreading, but I totally get where you're coming from, and that's just my opinion. So it's actually important that we have the differing opinions. And TeeBaby, you want to clarify this? Tell us where we're wrong.
So I'm gonna have to disagree with y'all when it comes to Sansa, and I'm just gonna say, hear me out. I get it. She's a cunt. She's a bitter, blah, blah, blah. I get it. However, let's break down exactly what happened, because if it was Bran, if Rickon was still alive, they wouldn't have had no King of the North scene. They would have appointed one of them to be either the Warden or the King of the North. What happened was you saw that they took Winterfell from Sansa. And the whole series, everyone keeps talking about her place and she's this piece because she has Winterfell. And then you see, what's her name? She's the one who's really rallying behind the North. It's not Jon, it's her. If you go back to all the scenes in the North when it comes to making decisions, it's usually her that's kicking it off first, and then everyone follows in line. Jon does not have everyone on the North on his side. However, you could easily say that, okay, Sansa, she was out of place, but then Mormont got to speak her mind, Glover got to speak his mind, Royce got to speak his mind, but when it came to Sansa, who always has to be quiet or has to say what everyone expects her to say, she finally gets home and gets to speak her mind, and everyone's telling her now to shut up. Mind you, last season, y'all was telling her that she's supposed to speak up because she knew about the veil and all of this, and now she's speaking her mind, everyone's telling her to shut up. Makes no sense. Also, it goes back to Cersei. She did learn a lot from Cersei. She knew that you can't be honorable playing this game. Ned had a certified piece of paper saying that he was supposed to be follow Joffrey till he comes of age. With Cersei to rip it up. So she already told Sansa from there, paper don't mean anything. It's what you have is power. Second of all, you have to go back to those the Blackwater battle where she and Cersei was talking. Cersei was saying how, you can't love no one, only love your children. The more you love someone, the weaker you become. What else did Cersei teach that girl? Cersei taught her that but it was messed up things. So when you see Sansa and how she wants to play games and manipulate people, you have to also point that Cersei taught her these things. I mean, critical points where she was becoming a woman when she was not deflowered. No, that's not where she was at. But when she had got her period, her menstrual, Cersei was the one that was not her mom, and her mom was telling her, not her mom, but Cersei was telling her how it is. So that the show went from the scene with Cersei and Jon, and then went to Cersei and they're basically in the same position where you need to listen to the person who knows what they're talking about. Sansa, she learned her lesson last season because she said, I don't know military. That's your stuff. Cersei, I do know. And Jon's falling for the same thing that happened at the Battle of Castle Black, where he's so focused on Mance coming at one direction, he doesn't realize they're fucking him from behind. That's the same thing's going on. You can be all you concerned, and I know it's the tone, and I really think Jon needs to just get out of his feelings, because I would agree with everyone when they say, well, it's her tone and everything, but Layla Mormont does not hold back. She doesn't try to soften anything from the second they met her. So if Jon can get over that, he has to get over the fact that Sansa's telling him something that he wants to hear. And another thing, y'all said, you know what, she shouldn't have kept going, but I kept going. So Sansa's looking at this little girl who's getting respect by all these grown men, and she's speaking her mind. And the second she speaks her mind about her house, y'all all just tell her to shut the fuck up. And so when you look back and she's like, if it wasn't for me, and Jon even said, if it wasn't for me in the Vale, you wouldn't be here. And Jon has to also realize he's not playing the game, that you need to be nice to Sansa, because that Vale is here for her. It's not here for you. Y'all both know that. So let's say she learned a lesson. She starts to try to talk to Jon when they move away. He walks ahead of her, meaning that he does not give two shits what she has to say. When he's talking to Mormont, when he's talking to Tormund, when he's talking to Davos, is side by side. When he talks to Sansa, he walks up. And so she grabs him like, you gonna talk to me. So I don't blame her. I disagree with everyone when y'all say, she's disrespectful, she's being a cunt, she's being all this stuff. She's doing the same shit that Arya's doing, except for she's playing the game where you have Arya who's just like, I'm wiping enemies out. And I have to agree with LaDonna when she said that it might be a mistake that you eagerly just gave them the houses and not talking out to see if they do feel the same way that their fathers are. Yes, I do agree that you can't blame the sons for their father's sin, but you also got to learn from your father's sin, and he's not learning from that. So I disagree completely with all of that. I feel like this is this smart thing, and she's like got it all figured out, but I think she's being hip to what's going on. And she's saying, like, we have to play this game. And if you go back, and y'all know I like going back to different episodes. Go back to season 4 when she's in that boat talking to Littlefinger. She says, I don't want to play the game. Littlefinger said, it doesn't matter. You're in the game. Same thing with Jon. You don't want to play this game, but they made you king in the north, so you got to play. And if Jon was smart, he would listen to what Sansa has to say, or at least listen to what she has to say when it comes to certain things that he's not good at. He's not good at playing games. Ned wasn't good at playing games. Rob wasn't good at playing games. Where they at now? They're dead. Sansa's making good points. You might not like how she says it. Get over it, because what she's saying is making good points. And that's it. See how short and sweet and to the point that was?
I'm coming in to say, fuck yeah, TeeBaby. Fuck yeah.
And there you have it.
I gotta say, T, I almost entirely agree with you. I think you said it's about tone. I think she could change the tone a little bit to be more respectful. He doesn't come across insulting with his tone. She does a little bit, but Liana does too. I do want to add though to what you're saying. Liana didn't attack John. Liana attacked Umber. Umber? Was it an Umber? I forget what his fucking name was. Glover attacked Glover. So John didn't have to deal with that directly, but I agree. Sansa's watching, and that my mom made this point. I don't think she's made it in this video, but Sansa's learning from everybody around her. She's learning from Littlefinger, she's learning from John, but she did learn a lot from Cersei. But she's learning a whole lot from Lyanna. She's watching a woman who's extremely young, extremely inexperienced, tell people that I'm as much a northerner as you, and I don't need your permission to fight for the North. That's extremely important. All right, Tony.
Can I wait? Can I?
Sorry, Maester Payne. Tony, you're going to close this out for the most part. So
just T. I love everything that it was beautiful. It was perfect. The one thing that I want to say that I forgot earlier is when Sansa and Littlefinger talk to each other, they're in opposite directions. They're not facing. Littlefinger's facing the wall. Sansa's facing over the field or whatever. When she talks to John, the show actually makes a big point of her reaching down and spinning him around to talk to her face to face. And that's Sansa's, I love it. Like TeeBaby, I everything you said is beautiful. And Sansa, they made a show of her doing that one motion and they even camera down to watch her hand and spin him around to look at her face to face. And this is the level that we're on. And doesn't matter if we're different, but they're still on the same side. And when they do look out, they look out the same direction. They're not opposed like Littlefinger and Sansa are. They look out the same way when they look over the courtyard and talk to each other. TeeBaby, I thought that was awesome. Sorry, I just had to add that. I forgot it earlier.
That's a great fucking point, Maester Payne. And I know a lot of the people disagree with me, but in my opinion, John and Sansa are going to end up together. And maybe I'm wrong. But if I'm right, this is Catelyn and Ned. Ned listened to Catelyn. He may not have always done what she said, but she was one to grab him by the arm and turn him around and say, no, that's not what you should do. Or my sister wouldn't send this letter. She is risking her own life and the life of her son. She wouldn't send it. Although Catelyn was technically wrong in that situation. But in the same way that I'm just seeing parallels between Ned and Catelyn ridiculously in these two. In my opinion, they're going to end up together. All right, Tony, I apologize. Give it to him.
No need to apologize. I really don't have a lot to say. Everyone has said a lot, and I agree with mostly everything, especially when you're dealing with the Sansa situation. I mean, you look at Sansa, you look at Dany, you look at Cersei, these three queens that we have left in the show. These are all three abused women. And when you're an abused woman, you look at things different. When you look at Lyanna, when you look at Lyanna Mormont, this is not an abused woman. She hasn't been through the things that these other women have been through. So she's looking at things totally differently. Cersei was abused by Robert. She was abused by her brother. Dany was abused by Drogo somewhat, and Sansa was abused in the show by Ramsay, which I think probably will happen to her when she's in the Vale with Harry the Heir. Probably most likely that they'll run that storyline with her. I will say this about Sophie Turner: what a tall drink of water that is right there. That is a very, very pretty woman, and I do not mind looking at her whatsoever. And now she's very young, and I don't look at her like that, but I don't mind looking at her whatsoever. I think the only way it really works for me is that it's all game. The fights with John in public, all this is game. If it's game and she's just doing this just for show, for Littlefinger to make him believe that she's mad at him, and then she's going to sleep with Littlefinger just to get him where she wants him, and then she pulls the strings on him and gets him out of there, I think it works and it proves that she learned something. I think it has to go that route in order for it to work. John, he just needs to learn how to listen to counsel better. He's not like a Stannis Baratheon who takes counsel from anyone. John still thinks he knows everything. He's not even paying any attention to someone who basically saved his ass. And if someone saved your ass when you're about to suffocate and die, you should give the girl some more respect and really listen to her and stuff. Could she have pulled him to the side and done that? I mean, when you go to a job, and the first thing they'll tell you in the interview, they'll ask you if you have a problem with one of your coworkers, what do you do? If you say, hey, I'm going to confront that coworker in front of all the other coworkers, you're not going to get that job. Number one thing you have to say when you're dealing with a SARS interview is that situation, action, result is that you would wait till that person is alone, then you would come up to that person by themselves, and then you would have a conversation with them. So she failed that interview right there, and she wouldn't have got that job just for the way she approached and stuff. But hopefully that is all for show. And if it's all for show, I think it works out that way. Liliana, more in my situation, I think they have to be careful, but they can't play it out. They can't have, I mean, she's snapping on Glover every time he opens his mouth. And it's cute, and I like it, and I love her. But I think if you don't want to play that out too much and have her acting like that every time you see her, every time, people are going to start thinking she's a bitch. And she's not. She's just stern. So I think you don't really want to play that out. And I think you want to maybe tone her down a little bit for the next couple of episodes. And this may give a look or something like that. As for anything else that's going on there, I don't know what else is really going on in the North. I think y'all really nailed everything else. But I will say this. You said something about Donald Trump, and I don't want to talk about politics or anything like that. But real quick, deal with Donald Trump is he a bad guy? He's really not a bad guy. He's just in over his head. And when you're a New Yorker and you're from New York like me, you're a winner. You want to win. And I think he got into an election. He didn't think he was going to win, and now he's in over his head. He won, and this is the reason why a lot of jobs ask you for experience. He's dealing with these guys learning on the job, and he's doing a terrible job while he's learning on the job, because when you're a New Yorker, you think you know everything. He thinks he knows everything, and he really doesn't, and that's why he finds himself in the problems that he keeps finding himself in. And I think also, too, he could be being set up by the Republican Party, too, to take the fall so they can move Mike Pence into office. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about politics. Anyway, that's how I feel about the whole situation. I thought it was a good situation in the North and stuff like that. I liked the scene with Jon Snow and all of them. Thought it was good. Not a lot went down, but that's all I really have to say about that. Like I said, happy to be here with my brothers and sisters on the small council. We'll be back next week. We will do this again, you know what I mean, and get this popping. So thank you for having me once again.
Thank you for joining us, Tony. You're the fucking man. All right. Let's give a last tiny little bit to see if anybody has anything to add and close it out. Mama?
I think we covered it, honestly. I think we've been at this for almost 4 hours, and I'm telling you, that shows how deep this show is. And so I would thank everybody in the chat. I'm going to thank everybody who's going to watch this video later. If they make it to this point, by God, they're diehards. I want to thank all of you for this incredible analysis of this great epic. I mean, the fact that we can talk about it and what it means and how we're affected by it for this long means that it is truly something. And I am just so happy to be sharing it with you guys, that we've been doing it for what, 4 or 5 years? So thanks for being my friend. You have made my life special, and I really mean that. And Jamie, I love you a lot.
I have something to say.
Love you.
I forgot what it was, though.
Oh my God, MP.
Continue on to the next person.
Okay. Niko?
I love you guys. I wanted to go back again, but I don't know if it's wise. Well, my point is, I agree with all of you. I cannot argue some points. I really cannot, and I don't want to. But what bothers me, and most people, I repeat, what bothers me is we all talk about that she learned something, but I never saw what are you talking about? What is this thing that she learned? She never, showed what she learned. Like it's hypothetical that she learned. Of course, yeah, well, most people should learn watching other people. This is how we evolved as a species, right? But
that's why she's the most interesting fucking character in the book. And I am not a big Sansa fan. I really, actually, I think like Jamie the best. This is why Sansa is really unique.
Yeah, but like, why are they waiting for like the last 3 minutes of the show that then showed like, oh my gosh, she's so smart? I don't think so. She should, if she's so smart, you could sense that from the beginning, but I never got that vibe from her, never. And like, there's so many more smart people than her.
A lot of people didn't know that Jon was a Targaryen either.
Yeah, no, not in that sense, but like, I mean, in the books or in the show. So the thing is, the thing that irks people is like she doesn't know when to speak. Like Lyanna Mormont knows when to speak and what to say, and people for some reason make it equal, you know, like being a woman or something. It has nothing to do with being a woman. I mean, to know when to speak, you know, it's just common, you know, nice manners, you know. Think about before you're speaking. What
Are you
TeeBaby
kidding
said.
me? Nice manners is what she was taught that got her fucked over forever. She doesn't need to have nice manners. You know what, Niko, I adore you. And I'm not saying this about you. I'm talking about nice manners. Girls are taught to smile and be nice. Never got me anywhere. Did it get you anywhere?
This is why
Oh
we
yes,
have thing.
only when I had nice manners. Yes, it's
Yeah,
different when you are nice to, you know, like
only
know
if
your
you
place.
manipulate it correctly.
Yes, but that's different. She was not manipulating anything. She was just being dumb, saying that out loud.
But she's
Of course,
not
she makes
now.
What?
But she's not now. We'll wait and see. I love y'all. I'm gonna shut up.
Okay, but you know, like that's my point. Like, when are we gonna see the smartness of Sansa? Like, the last 3 minutes.
We have 2 more 1,500-page books. We'll see.
No, we're not gonna get books. I'm not.
I remembered what I was going to say.
Tell us, MP.
Okay. I discovered why we know that Cersei drinks. And this is true, and you have to believe it, because it's the ultimate actual realization.
You mean the reason she drinks?
The symbolism of her drinking is her thirst for power. That's why she drinks all the time. That was every time she gets in a jam, wine, 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 wine. Just like me.
You know what? You know, Lena Headey nailed this about 3 years ago in an interview with the guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia as the moderator. But she and Jamie were talking to each other on the interview, and Jamie said, "You love me, don't you?" And she said, "I want to be you," because she wants to be a man.
Well, it's not that she wants to be a man.
No, she wants to have the power.
Yes, exactly. And that's what her thirst is, and that's why she's always drinking. She's filling that gaping hole. Speaking from experience.
Yeah, we're filming.
Mine's not that, but mine.
Everybody has a gaping hole, MP.
Oh, I know. It doesn't manifest in booze. Trust me, I know. I'm just me. I love you, everybody. Thanks for watching. This was way more revealing than I thought it would be, but I thought that was a great point to close on. I love you all.
I don't like to meet women with gaping holes.
Oh, fuck, Tony.
James,
I don't. I can't. If I get down there and I say hello and it echoes, I'm leaving. All right.
That was too short, right? Too short. Hello down there.
I'm black for real. I'm not half black, but I'm saying I'm not going down there. You know, there's people there's Ron Jeremy's out there that are just superhuman. All right, and you know, you ain't messing with no guys like that. But the Don's got to bounce. I got to get up 4 o'clock in the morning.
All right, I love you, Tony. Thank you.
All right, brother. It's just, I'll see y'all later.
Yes,
Good
sir.
night,
And stay safe.
Are we still live, or I forgot?
we're still live. Don't say anything incriminating. I'm your lawyer.
TeeBaby, I need to hear you say you love us.
Oh, I love y'all from the bottom of my heart. No matter how much you love Jamie and Cersei and all these other people, I still love y'all. I love the great Sansa debate because it brings out the best conversations, no matter what conversation you might have. If you start talking about Sansa, you're going to get some good conversation, whether you love her, whether you hate her. She brings out the best and worst in conversations, and I love it. Once again, this is the best way to start off first episode of season 7. It seems like it's only going to get better from here. You know, even though there's smaller episodes, fewer episodes, you can tell that the conversation is going to be long, drawn out. And I hope that one day we get to be on the back porch about these books one day. I'm gonna speak it into existence so that it can happen. But always fun, guys, and I love it.
Love you, T. I love all y'all. Thank y'all. All right, I'm closing out. Everybody say goodbye.